Chapter 436. After collecting the treasures that the Black Wind Stockade had obtained over countless years, Yu did not leave the southern mountains. Instead, he continued to stay in the southern mountains for a while. Why were powerhouses of the Immortal King realm and above killed after entering the southern mountains? Who had killed them? What secrets did the southern mountains hold? To be able to kill powerhouses of the Immortal King realm, or even immortal lords or immortal emperors. In that case, there must be a superpower hidden in the southern mountains. Even the entire southern mountains was under the control of this power. It was precisely because of this that this power prohibited powerhouses of the Immortal King realm and above from entering the southern mountains. They could not invade the power's territory. Yu guessed in his heart. However, Yu had never heard of any sects in the southern mountains, other than the Black Wind Stockade that he had destroyed. However, if there was no power, then who had killed those powerhouses who had entered the southern mountains? Yu stayed in the southern mountains for a few days. He wanted to discover the power hidden in the southern mountains, but he had not found anything. The southern mountains was simply too big. Even though Yu was extremely fast, it was impossible for him to travel through the entire southern mountains in a short period of time. Moreover, because of the possible existence of the sect, with their strength, they did not want to be discovered by others. With Yu's current strength, he really could not discover them. If there really is a power in the southern mountains, it must be hidden somewhere in the southern mountains or in another space. This kind of power must be very powerful, at least at the level of the Immortal Palace. Yu muttered to himself. Even the Heavenly Punisher Palace was unwilling to enter the southern mountains. One could imagine how powerful the sect in the southern mountains was. With my strength, even if I search the entire southern mountains, I'm afraid I won't be able to find the location of that sect. Now that the Black Wind Stockade has been destroyed, I'll return to the Heavenly Punisher Palace to complete the mission and see if there's any information about the southern mountains. Yu thought for a moment. Then his figure flashed and disappeared from the spot. When he reappeared, he was already outside the Heavenly Punisher Palace. Not long after, he had entered the Heavenly Punisher Palace. Mount Wuji in the mission hall. What? You wiped out the Black Wind Stockade in the South Mountains? When he saw that Yu was about to submit this mission, the elder who issued the mission couldn't help but exclaim. Not too long ago, Yu had destroyed the Black Civ sect, which had shocked him greatly. A few days later, Yu once again destroyed the Black Wind Stockade. It must be remembered that the Black Wind Stronghold was many times more powerful than the Black Civ sect. Furthermore, the 5 fort masters of the Black Wind Stockade were originally the enforcers of the Heavenly Punisher Palace. Before Yu, countless Punishers who had accepted this mission had returned empty-handed. Many of them had even been killed by the Black Wind Stockade. Most importantly, those people were far stronger than Yu. At any rate, Yu was just an ascendant immortal. What? The Black Wind Stockade was annihilated? There were many disciples of the Heavenly Punisher Palace in the mission hall. As for the Black Wind Stronghold mission, although the mission to eliminate the Black Wind Stronghold didn't mention the Black Wind Stronghold, many people had accepted this mission before. Therefore, many people knew about the mission to eliminate the Black Wind Stronghold. That's a death mission, a mission that's almost impossible to complete. When they heard about the Black Wind Stockade's mission, the first thing that came to mind was the repeated failures to wipe out the Black Wind Stockade. The bandits of the Black Wind Stockade were truly powerful, and immortal kings were unable to enter. If they wanted to enter the South Mountains to wipe out the Black Wind Stockade, they needed a large number of experts. However, apart from those who were unlucky enough to be assigned this mission, who would dare enter the South Mountains? After all, they were terrifying existences that could even kill immortal kings. Thus, the mission to wipe out the Black Wind Stockade had never been completed. On the contrary, many disciples of the Heavenly Punisher Palace had died at the hands of the Black Wind Stockade. Thus, when they heard the exclamation of the mission hall elder, everyone in the hall instantly focused their attention on Yu. A disciple of the Heavenly Punisher Palace looked at Yu and said disdainfully, A superior immortal actually completed the mission to wipe out the Blackwind Stockade? Is this a joke? No one would believe that a superior immortal could wipe out the Blackwind Stockade. However, the exclamation of the Mission Hall Elder didn't seem to be false. Even if you beat me to death, I won't believe that a superior immortal could wipe out the Blackwind Stockade. Another disciple of the Heavenly Punisher Palace had an expression of disbelief. This is definitely a joke. Almost none of the disciples of the Heavenly Punisher Palace believed it. Is this guy trying to deceive the Mission Hall Elder? He's really reckless. Another person said, haha, this guy was probably assigned the mission to wipe out the Blackwind Stockade, but he didn't have the ability to complete it, so he's trying to bluff his way through again, right? Bluff his way through? Unless there's something wrong with his brain, someone sneered disdainfully. Although the surrounding people's voices weren't particularly loud, how could their words not reach Murong Yu's ears despite the size of the hall? Not a single word of their discussion escaped Murong Yu's ears. Murong Yu didn't react to their disdain and mockery. After all, he was only a superior immortal, and the Blackwind Stockade was a third-rate power. If it were him, he probably wouldn't believe it either. However, just because Murong Yu didn't care about what they said didn't mean that he didn't feel the slightest bit of emotion. Immediately, he glared fiercely at the Mission Hall Elder, an expression of obvious displeasure on his face. No matter what, the Mission Hall Elder was still an elder. How could he make such a big fuss over nothing? In reality, what Murong Yu didn't know was that the fact that he'd wiped out the Black Civ sect had already caused these elders to feel incredulous. They'd already been paying attention to him. Now that he'd wiped out the Blackwind Stockade, which they'd never been able to wipe out, the Mission Hall Elder was naturally astonished. After all, he'd seen countless disciples of the Heavenly Punisher Palace accept this mission, but in the end, they'd all failed and never returned. Thus, when he learned that Murong Yu had actually wiped out the Blackwind Stockade, he was naturally astonished. Furthermore, he didn't think that Murong Yu had bluffed his way through. The Mission Hall Elder was a bit embarrassed, and his face darkened. He swept his gaze fiercely over the disciples of the Heavenly Punisher Palace, then coldly said to Murong Yu, "Follow me." That seems to be Murong Yu. He completed the mission to wipe out the Blackwind Stockade. After Murong Yu left, a disciple of the Heavenly Punisher Palace suddenly cried out in alarm. Who's Murong Yu? That name sounds familiar. Where have I heard it before? A disciple of the Heavenly Punisher Palace looked puzzled. There were too many disciples of the Heavenly Punisher Palace, other than a few who knew the rest. Not long ago, on the Five-Finger Mountain Plaza, a new enforcer of the Higher Immortal Stage completely defeated another new enforcer of the Golden Immortal Stage. It seems that the Higher Immortal was also called Murong Yu. Could it be that guy? Yes, I remember now. He even won a few royal weapons that day. A disciple of the Heavenly Punisher Palace suddenly recalled the duel that day. It seems that this guy hid his strength well. Defeating a Golden Immortal was already very shocking. I didn't expect him to wipe out the Blackwind Stockade. So it's him. In that case, he does have the ability to wipe out the Blackwind Stockade with the royal weapon in his hands. Once an Immortal King stage expert entered the Southern Mountains, they would be killed. However, what if Murong Yu had a royal weapon? The royal weapon wouldn't be killed, right? Moreover, a royal weapon was equivalent to an immortal king. So, it's because of the royal weapon. Someone suddenly understood. However, they didn't know that Murong Yu had never used a royal weapon. Using a royal weapon consumed too much energy. With Murong Yu's current strength, he could only barely use it once. Even if Murong Yu could kill the Blackwind Stockade's Stockade Master, there were still 4 other Stockade Masters. Moreover, there were also many other experts. With just a royal weapon, Murong Yu couldn't wipe out the Blackwind Stockade. Royal weapon? In the hall, the eyes of several disciples of the Heavenly Punisher Palace flashed with greed. This kid is too elusive. We don't even have a chance to attack, a disciple of the Heavenly Punisher Palace said with a sneer. In reality, the temptation of a royal weapon was extremely great. When the news of Murong Yu obtaining a royal weapon spread, the disciples of the Heavenly Punisher Palace had their eyes on him. However, Moronyu usually used the Hichu Lu Oshu to teleport. They simply didn't have a chance to attack. In the building behind the mission hall. This was the second time that Moronyu had come here. The first time was also because he had destroyed the Black Civ sect. The mission elder looked coldly at Moronyu and said, "You said that you've completed the mission to wipe out the Black Wind Stockade. We still need to confirm the procedures, huh?" The mission elder was just about to say that he wanted to confirm whether or not Moronyu had really wiped out the Black Wind Stockade. However, before he could finish, he couldn't say anything else. This was because 5 corpses had appeared out of thin air in front of him. They were the 5 stockade masters of the Black Wind Stockade. "I think we can confirm it now." Moronyu looked at the mission elder and said calmly, "We can confirm it." The mission elder couldn't help but follow Moronyu's words. He had already confirmed the identities of the 5 corpses. They were indeed the stockade masters of the Black Wind Stockade. This brat, what other tricks does he have up his sleeve? The mission elder was greatly shocked. He couldn't help but look at Moronyu. At the same time, behind the building, several old men were also looking at Moronyu with astonishment. This brat really surprises people. I really want to know what he can accomplish. The old men's faces were filled with astonishment. He's one of the fastest newcomers to the Heavenly Punisher Palace to complete the first mission. I wonder if he'll be able to complete the last mission? One of the old men suddenly became curious. The mysterious disappearance of the palace master of the Foam Province branch? Even our Heavenly Punisher Palace couldn't find a reason for that. If Moronyu can truly investigate it, then I'll spare no expense to nurture him, one of the old men said. Chapter 437. While these seemingly heavenly punishing palace elders were talking about Moronyu behind his back, Moronyu was still in the main hall. If Moronyu knew that the heavenly punishing palace had given him the task of investigating something that even they couldn't investigate, even if these people were elders of the heavenly punishing palace, Moronyu would probably fall out with them. After all, this matter was simply too nonsensical. What kind of power was the heavenly punishing palace? Something that they couldn't investigate was given to Moronyu, an immortal. Moreover, it was set to be completed within 1,000 years. Wasn't this making things difficult for Moronyu? Fortunately, Moronyu didn't know about this matter. Otherwise, he would have flipped out. "Elder, my task can be considered completed, right? Can we leave now?" Moronyu indifferently said as he looked at the elder's shocked expression. The elder was still in shock and disbelief. Hearing Moronyu's words, he just waved his hand. Seeing this, Moronyu left the main hall and went to the information hall on the other side. The information hall was not only for information, but also for contribution points, points exchange, etc. Moronyu had come here to see if there were any secrets related to the Namling Mountains. If there were, he wouldn't bother to investigate. After checking, Moronyu was pleasantly surprised to find that the Heavenly Punishing Palace really had information about the Southern Mountains. So, he went to find an elder in the main hall. This elder had the appearance of an old man. His face was indifferent. When Moronyu came over, he only glanced at him coldly and didn't say anything. The information about the Southern Mountains requires 5,000 points. The elder's indifferent voice gave Moronyu a big fright. 5,000 points. Moronyu rolled his eyes. He only used 100 points to exchange for the information about the Black Wind Stronghold. The information about the Southern Mountains was 50 times more valuable than the information about the Black Wind Stronghold. Perhaps the information really does contain the secrets of the Namling Mountains. Moronyu was a little excited. Since the points were so expensive, they definitely had their value. Moronyu took out a token and handed it over to the indifferent elder. He said in a firm tone, "Exchange." This token was Moronyu's identity token in the Heavenly Retribution Palace. In addition to indicating Moronyu's identity, it also had a function similar to a jade slip, recording everything that had happened to Moronyu in the Heavenly Retribution Palace. This included his points in Moronyu and the Heavenly Punishing Palace. A new Punisher? This kid has some guts. When the indifferent elder received Moronyu's identity medallion, his indifferent face couldn't help but reveal an astonished expression. As an elder of the Intelligence Hall, He came into contact with many matters of exchanging points for information and items on a daily basis. This kind of thing was repeated every day, and he had seen all kinds of people. He was already numb to it. However, he'd never seen a newly appointed punishment enforcer as courageous as Murong-yu. Does he not know the preciousness of the heavenly retribution palace's points? The indifferent elder's heart flashed with a touch of doubt. As a disciple of the heavenly retribution palace, everyone knew the preciousness of points. Therefore, every disciple who wanted to exchange points, even if it was just 1 point, would have to think for a long time. Murong-yu had only been a punisher for a few days, but he had already spent a lot of points. This was the first time the indifferent elder had seen someone like him. If this kid is not too bold, then he is too ignorant. The indifferent elder glanced at Murong-yu and directly deducted 5,000 points from Murong-yu's token. Although he felt that Murong-yu was wasting points, what did this have to do with him? Wasting was Murong-yu's business. It had nothing to do with him. He didn't need to remind him. However, he didn't know the importance of the Namling Mountain's secrets to Murong-yu. Even if the Namling Mountain's information was worth 50,000 points, Murong-yu would not hesitate to exchange for it. Of course, the premise was that Murong-yu had so many points. If he only spent 5,000 points in exchange for the Chaos Shenzhen's development in the immortal world, it was absolutely worth it. After spending 5,000 points, Murong-yu's token still had 4,900 points. Murong-yu put the token into the Hichu Luoshu world, and at the same time, took the indifferent elder's jade slip. The moment he took the jade slip, Murong-yu couldn't wait to explore it with his divine sense. However, it didn't take long for him to withdraw his divine sense from the jade slip with a slight frown. Just as his spiritual sense exited the jade slip in his hand automatically shattered. This information was a one-time use. This was the Heavenly Retribution Palace's method to prevent information from being leaked. 5,000 points for this little information. Murong-yu looked gloomily at the indifferent elder. He couldn't help but feel angry. That was 5,000 points. Originally, Murong-yu thought that the information exchange for 5,000 points would be very detailed. However, he had already learned a considerable part of the information in the Jade Slip from the Black Wind Stronghold Master. The Nanling Mountains is a forbidden area in the Lingnan region. Experts above the Immortal King realm will die if they enter. Is the Tomb of Experts. This was a paragraph in the Jade Slip, which had no value at all. The slightly valuable information was that the information mentioned that there were no sects in the Lingnan region. This made Murong-yu's guess fail. However, there was no information about why experts above the Immortal King realm would die if they entered the Lingnan region and why the Nanling Mountains were the Tomb of Experts. If you want more detailed information, you can exchange it with points. The indifferent elder was expressionless in the face of Murong-yu's anger. He faced this kind of situation every day. There is more detailed information. Murong-yu was a little shocked, but more than that, he was angry and a little puzzled. 5,000 points in exchange for such a small amount of information. This information is too valuable. If Murong-yu said that he was not angry in his heart, it would be a lie. Why did I only get a little information? Is it because I don't have enough points? Murong-yu suppressed the anger in his heart and looked at the indifferent elder coldly and asked, "You don't have enough authority." The indifferent elder didn't even look at Murong-yu and just said these 4 words indifferently. Authority. Murong-yu frowned. How can I increase my authority? The authority of the enforcers of the cultivation world and the palace masters of the Heavenly Punisher Palace are the same. Your authority is much higher than the average Heavenly Punisher Palace disciple. You can look up a lot of information that ordinary disciples can't. Some of it is even free. Moreover, your status and authority have already given you a discount when exchanging points. Otherwise, you wouldn't have been able to look up the information about the Nanling Mountains. Even if you had the authority to look it up, you would need 10,000 points to exchange for it. Contrary to Murong-yu's expectations, the indifferent elder said a lot of things this time, which made Murong-yu feel slightly surprised. The higher the authority, the more information one could look up. There was also a discount when exchanging points. Some of the information was even provided for free. The indifferent elder's words revealed this information. This made Murong Yu a little surprised. He was the enforcer of the cultivation world. Previously, he didn't understand the exchange of points for ordinary disciples of the Heavenly Punisher Palace. Therefore, he didn't know that his authority in the Heavenly Punisher Palace wasn't low. How can I increase my authority? Murong Yu asked again. Increase the star level of the manor or increase your status in the Heavenly Punisher Palace? The indifferent elder glanced at Murong Yu and said indifferently, Okay. Murong Yu was a little depressed in his heart. Whether it was increasing the star level of the manor or increasing his status in the Heavenly Punisher Palace, it was impossible for him at this stage. How many points do I need for more detailed information about the Nanling Mountains? 50,000 points. Murong Yu almost cursed at the indifferent elder. This was too much of a scam. 50,000 points? He might as well rob someone. The intelligence has detailed information about the Nanling Mountains. It even has the secret of why experts of the Immortal King realm and above can't enter the Nanling Mountains. At this time, the indifferent elder suddenly said. Murong Yu couldn't wait to slap this elder to death. He knew that Murong Yu didn't have that many points, but he deliberately said this. Wasn't he deliberately provoking Murong Yu? We'll talk about it when I have enough points. Murong Yu turned around and left the hall. The Heavenly Punisher Palace's point system was too much of a scam. Completing tasks didn't give many points, but if one wanted to use points to exchange for items and information, it was very deceptive. It seems that the Heavenly Punisher Palace isn't a good place. If I only rely on points to exchange, I don't know when I will be able to find the secret of the Nanling Mountains. Murong Yu muttered to himself. Suddenly, his eyes lit up. The old man is so strong and has a wide network of connections. He should know the secret of the Nanling Mountains. It's just that the old man is elusive. I don't know where he is now. Since there was no sect in the Nanling Mountains, Murong Yu's previous guess that some sect had occupied the Nanling Mountains was wrong. However, since there was no sect in the Nanling Mountains, who killed those experts who broke into the Nanling Mountains? This was quite mysterious. Should I build the Chaos Shenzhen on the Nanling Mountains? Murong Yu hesitated. The Nanling Mountains was rich in immortal spirit chi. It was definitely the best choice to build a sect. However, the situation in the Nanling Mountains was unknown. If he built the Shenzhen there rashly, something unexpected might happen. Murong Yu returned to his manor in the Heavenly Punisher Palace. As soon as he entered the manor, he saw Steward Ma. Then, Murong Yu's eyes lit up. Steward Ma is an expert in the Immortal King realm. He should know some of the secret of the Nanling Mountains, right? Steward Ma, let me ask you something. Do you know the secret of the Nanling Mountains? Murong Yu went straight to the point. Steward Ma's expression suddenly changed. He looked at Murong Yu in surprise. Looking at Steward Ma's expression, Murong Yu was delighted. He felt that there was hope, so he asked again, Do you know why experts in the Immortal King realm or above can't enter the Nanling Mountains? Palace Master, the Nanling Mountains are extremely mysterious. Do you want to explore the Nanling Mountains? Please think twice. The Nanling Mountains is not a place where ordinary people can enter. Steward Ma's expression changed. He thought that Murong Yu wanted to enter the Nanling Mountains, so he quickly tried to dissuade him. However, he didn't know that Murong Yu had already walked around the Nanling Mountains. Chapter 438. Seeing the change in Steward Ma's expression, Murong Yu was overjoyed. If Steward Ma did not know the secret of the Southern Mountain Range, why would he be so nervous? Therefore, Murong Yu asked directly, Steward Ma, tell me more about the Southern Mountain Range. Steward Ma looked at Murong Yu seriously and said, Palace Master, do you really want to know about the Southern Mountain Range? Although I know a little, it's not the whole story. Murong Yu nodded, but he was overjoyed. He did not need to know too much. Even if it was just a little, it would be enough. After all, the Southern Mountain Range was so big, and the secret of the Southern Mountain Range was definitely not a small matter. It was probably impossible to know everything. Steward Ma did not speak, but he muttered to himself as if he was organizing his words. After a long while, Steward Ma said slowly, The Southern Mountain Range is the forbidden area of the Southern Mountain Range and is also one of the famous forbidden areas in the immortal world. It is the tomb of immortal kings and above. Morong nodded his head. He already knew all of this. What he wanted to know now was what had caused this situation to occur. Who was it that killed his immortal king realm experts? However, he did not interrupt Steward Ma. Listening to Steward Ma's explanation, Morong finally had a rough understanding of the Southern Mountain Range. A long time ago, perhaps during the ancient times, or even longer ago, the Southern Mountain Range was the place with the densest immortal spirit chi in the Southern Mountain Range, just like now. However, at that time, the Southern Mountain Range was not as strange as it was now. At that time, although the Southern Mountain Range was big, it was dominated by a huge sect. This huge sect was very powerful, even more powerful than the current Immortal Palace, Devil Sect, and so on. It was the absolute overlord of the immortal world at that time, almost ruling the entire immortal world. That huge sect was called the Phantom Sect. The Phantom Sect. Morong frowned slightly. Why had he not heard of a huge sect in the ancient times, an absolute overlord of the immortal world? Moreover, at that time, the entire Southern Mountain Range was the territory of the Phantom Sect, almost ruling the entire immortal world. But now there was no trace of it. Could it have been destroyed? Although the Phantom Sect is powerful and has practically ruled over the entire immortal world, a tall tree attracts the wind. Naturally, the various sects in the immortal world are unhappy with being ruled by the Phantom Sect. It turned out that although the Mirage Sect ruled the immortal world, it was relatively low-key and did not deliberately suppress the development of other sections. At that time, the immortal realm had many superpowers at the same level as the Immortal Palace today. However, although the Phantom Sect didn't suppress these sects didn't want their sects to be suppressed by the Phantom Sect for a long time. This was because they all wanted to become the overlord of the immortal world and unify the immortal world. Thus, a soul-stirring battle began. In this war, the Mirage Sect alone faced almost all the forces of the immortal world. It must be known that this was the ancient times when the various sects and clans contended for supremacy. Other than the giant Phantom Sect, there were many other superpowers. Although the Phantom Sect was powerful, they were still alone. Could it be that the Phantom Sect was uprooted just like that? Morong eyes flashed as he found it hard to believe. A giant existence was gone just like that. How could it not be shocking? Housekeeper Ma sneered. Although the Phantom Sect was alone, they were still the only overlord. Even if the entire immortal world was their enemy, how could they be killed so easily? That war lasted for a whole 100 years. The war that lasted for 100 years caused the sky to fall and the earth to split. Even the southern mountains were almost tied. In that war, both sides suffered heavy losses. Countless experts of the immortal king realm and above were killed. Even many immortal emperor realm experts were killed on the southern mountains. Although the Phantom Sect was powerful, each person was a terrifying existence that could fight against 10. However, their opponent was the entire immortal world. Just in terms of numbers, the Phantom Sect was already at a disadvantage. Although each person of the Phantom Sect was a terrifying existence that could fight against 10, they were not invincible in the end. Experts fell one after another, and blood flowed like a river. Compared to the Phantom Sect, the losses of other sects and forces were even more terrifying. There were even countless superpowers that were directly wiped out in that war. Because of that war, countless sects and forces' legacies were destroyed. After fighting for a whole 100 years, countless experts were killed. The Phantom Sect also suffered heavy losses. In the end, the Phantom Sect was only left with a few immortal Emperor Realm experts. As for the other sects, more than 80% of them were killed by the Phantom Sect. Tens of millions of sects were directly destroyed. Is the Phantom Sect really that terrifying? Morong asked in shock. He could not imagine how a sect could fight against the entire immortal world. One had to know that this was the immortal world, not the cultivation world. In the cultivation world, a sect only needed a few immortals to fight against the entire world. When Morong was in the immortal world, He used the power of Shenzhen to fight against the entire world. However, the cultivation world could not be compared to the immortal world. The people in the immortal world were much, much stronger. Could it be that there is a god in the Phantom Sect? Morongyu asked with a frown. This was the only explanation that could explain the strength of the Phantom Sect. However, if there really was a god, the other sects should also have one. If these experts were to fight, whether it was the Phantom Sect or the other sects, they would have been wiped out long ago. Perhaps even the entire immortal world would be destroyed. After all, the level of a god was far beyond the level of an immortal. Steward Ma shook his head. There shouldn't be a god. As for whether there is an even stronger existence, I don't know. After all, this is all hearsay. I don't know if it is true. Morongyu nodded, but he did have a question. Why are the people of the Phantom Sect so strong? Because of their cultivation technique. Their sect's cultivation technique is already very strong. Moreover, some of the experts in the sect have mastered a movement technique. That movement technique is definitely the #1 movement technique. Its speed is extremely fast. It looks down on the world. In the same realm, the speed of the Phantom Sect's experts is definitely the #1. Perhaps the origin of the Phantom Sect is because of this movement technique. Morongyu is shocked. Definitely the #1? What kind of movement technique is the Phantom Sect's movement technique? Could it be the army formula? Every word of the 9 syllables mantra is definitely the top mental cultivation technique in the world. If the Phantom Sect cultivates the army formula, then it is possible that their speed is the #1 in the world. Other than the cultivation technique, the people of the Phantom Sect also mastered a type of hand seal. It is said that it is a hand seal that is compatible with the movement technique. Its lethality is extremely terrifying. Basically, one will die upon contact. Moreover, because of the movement technique, ordinary experts are not their opponents. It is extremely difficult to escape from their attacks. Morongyu was shocked again. Could it be that the Phantom Sect really cultivates the army formula? Only the 9 syllables mantra has a matching hand seal. However, it might not be the 9 syllables mantra. Morongyu was shocked to the extreme. If the Phantom Sect really cultivates the army formula, then could the golden corpse in the depths of the Demon Mountain be a member of the Phantom Sect? At that time, there was also the heaven-shaking bow and the heaven-shaking arrow. The doubt in Morongyu's heart grew even stronger. He desperately wanted to know if Huaning was cultivating the soldier symbol art. However, the Phantom Sect had been destroyed countless years ago. The southern mountains, which had collapsed during the war, had already recovered its spiritual energy. Although the immortal realm was vast, there were probably only a few people who knew about the Phantom Sect. Even if the strength of each person in the Phantom Sect is heaven-defying, 1 against 10, 1 against 100, in the end, they were still alone. In the end, they were still destroyed by the other sects in the immortal world. Morongyu sighed. The Phantom Sect was destroyed, and the other sects in the immortal world also suffered heavy losses. That war ultimately caused the strength of the immortal world to drop by several levels. Later on, it was almost invaded by the other immortal worlds. With so many people dying in that war, it would be strange if the overall strength of the immortal world did not drop. Being invaded by the other immortal worlds was very normal. However, Morongyu was not concerned about this. He was more concerned about whether the people of the Phantom Sect escaped. At that time, almost all of the people of the Phantom Sect were killed. In the end, only the Phantom Immortal Emperor, the sect master of the Phantom Sect, escaped the southern mountain range with the sect treasure. However, it is said that when the Phantom Immortal Emperor escaped, he was seriously injured. After that, he did not appear again. I believe that he has fallen. Morongyu's body shook violently. It can't be so coincidental, right? Could that golden skeleton be the sect master of the Phantom Sect, the Phantom Immortal Emperor? What is the sect treasure of the Phantom Sect? Morongyu asked anxiously. If the Phantom Sect treasures were the Cosmos Bow and the Heaven-Shaking Arrow, Morongyu could basically confirm the identity of the golden skeleton. Steward Ma looked at Morongyu with a surprised expression. He was a little surprised as to why he was so anxious. However, He shook his head. I don't know about this. Moronyu was a little disappointed. However, he was now basically sure that the golden skeleton should be the Phantom Immortal Emperor. The movement technique of the Phantom Sect should also be the army formula. However, how could the army formula be spread in a sect? This was simply impossible. In this regard, Moronyu vaguely felt that the movement technique of the Phantom Sect was not the army formula. It's all been too long. It is basically impossible to figure out what happened back then. Moronyu sighed. Even though it was Steward Ma who said all this, Moronyu was not 100% sure that it was true. After all, the Antiquity Age and the present were too long ago. Regarding the battle back then, what was passed down in the world might not be true. No. What is the relationship between the Phantom Sect and the Southern Mountain Range? Moronyu suddenly reacted. Could it be related to the Phantom Sect? However, the Phantom Sect has been destroyed for so long. How could it still be related to them? Chapter 439. The mystery behind the Southern Mountain Range today is the Phantom Sect. Steward Ma said with a serious expression. Moronyu frowned. The Phantom Sect has been destroyed for so many years. Could it be that there are still experts in the Southern Mountain Range? But that shouldn't be the case. If the Phantom Sect still has people, the other sects wouldn't have let them live. The Phantom Sect has indeed been destroyed. Even the Phantom Immortal Emperor who escaped that day was rumored to have been killed. Moreover, there are no other sects in the Southern Mountain Range. Since the Phantom Sect doesn't have people, does the Southern Mountain Range have anything to do with them? Moronyu frowned as he looked at Steward Ma. Remnant souls causing mischief, Steward Ma said with a serious expression. Remnant souls causing mischief? Moronyu didn't understand. Every living thing had a soul. Moronyu knew this. Back then, he had a soul-summoning banner and killed countless people until they cried like ghosts and howled like wolves. However, a person's death was like an extinguished lamp. Could it be that a person's soul would remain after they died? At this moment, Moronyu suddenly thought of the undead. The living dead didn't have souls. They only had simple consciousness and a well-preserved body. At the same time, they preserved their powerful strength. Actually, it's more appropriate to call them vengeful spirits. Steward Ma said slowly. Ever since the Phantom Sect was destroyed, the Southern Mountain Range became a forbidden area. The reason for this is the vengeful spirits of the Phantom Sect. There are really vengeful spirits in this world? Moronyu was surprised. There was a saying in the secular world that people would become ghosts after they died. For cultivators like Moronyu, they knew that there were no ghosts in this world, and the ghosts in the secular world should be referring to the souls of people. However, generally speaking, the soul couldn't leave the body and survive on its own. The two were dependent on each other. However, this was for ordinary people. For some powerful experts, their souls were extremely powerful. After they were killed, their souls wouldn't dissipate. Instead, they would continue to live in the world. These were called remnant souls. However, these remnant souls were different from ordinary souls. These remnant souls did not have a complete consciousness. They only had instincts from when they were alive. Among the remnant souls, there was another kind of existence, and that was the vengeful soul. The so-called vengeful spirit was actually a type of remnant soul. The reason why it turned into a vengeful spirit was because the deceased had been killed for some reason, resulting in a huge amount of resentment. After death, the consciousness would not dissipate, and the desire for revenge would become stronger and stronger, eventually turning into a vengeful spirit. The strength of this kind of vengeful spirit would increase with the intensity of the remnant spirit's thought. It was also related to the strength of the spirit itself. The reason why the Southern Mountain Range is like this is because of the vengeful spirits of the Phantom Sect's experts. They can even kill immortal kings and immortal monarchs. These vengeful spirits are at least immortal emperor-level existences. Morongyu's face was filled with shock. Ever since the Phantom Sect was destroyed, many vengeful spirits have appeared in the Southern Mountain Range. However, as time passed, these vengeful spirits gradually dissipated. However, Some vengeful spirits survived, and as time passed, they became stronger and stronger. Now, there shouldn't be many vengeful spirits in the southern mountain range, but their strength is extremely terrifying. Even immortal monarchs are unwilling to enter the southern mountain range. If entering the southern mountain range is really caused by vengeful spirits, and those vengeful spirits are so powerful, it can explain why immortal kings and above were killed after entering. Vengeful spirits that even immortal emperors did not dare to come into contact with. Immortal kings and immortal monarchs were completely unable to withstand a single blow. Moreover, because of the destruction of the Phantom Sect, the vengeful spirits of the Phantom Sect were extremely resentful. As long as an expert entered the southern mountain range, they would attack. As for why they did not attack immortals below the Immortal King level, it should not be difficult to explain, because those vengeful spirits were extremely powerful, and experts below the Immortal King level were not strong enough to trigger the vengeful spirit's hatred. Palace Master, this is all news that I heard. I'm afraid you can't take it seriously. I hope you don't take it seriously and just treat it as a story, Steward Ma said with a serious expression. Steward Ma, this information of yours is really too useful. Moreover, it's free. The Heavenly Punisher Palace is really too deceitful. When he thought about how the information he spent 5,000 points to buy was basically useless, Murong Yu was furious. However, Murong Yu obtained a large amount of useful information from Steward Ma. Even if only 10 or 20% of this information was true, it would still explain the doubts in Murong Yu's heart. Palace Master, you used your points to exchange for information of the Heavenly Punisher Palace? Steward Ma frowned slightly. 5,000 points to buy information of the Southern Mountain Range, but it's useless, Murong Yu said with gritted teeth. Palace Master, I'm an immortal king after all. Back then, I also wandered outside and lived for a period of time. I still have some understanding of some secrets of the immortal world. If you have any questions in the future, you can ask me directly. Using points to exchange for information of the Heavenly Punisher Palace is really not worth it. Murong Yu nodded and agreed with Steward Ma's words. After this lesson, Murong Yu would not easily use his points to exchange for information of the Heavenly Punisher Palace, unless he had no other choice. Palace Master, is there anything else this old servant can help you with? Steward Ma was very happy to have answered one of Murong Yu's doubts. There's nothing else for the time being. You can go and do your work. If I have any questions in the future, I'll ask you for advice. It's this old servant's duty to help the Palace Master. In that case, this old servant will go and do his work. Steward Ma bowed slightly to Murong Yu and then left. Murong Yu returned to his room and sat cross-legged, thinking about the Southern Mountain Range and the primal chaos Shenzhen. If Steward Ma's words are true, and the resentful spirits of the Southern Mountain Range are really that powerful, it'll be troublesome. Immortal Emperor, that's the peak existence of the immortal world. Murong Yu frowned slightly. However, the immortal spiritual energy in the Southern Mountain Range is extremely rich. With the environment of the Southern Mountain Range, it'll be absolutely safe if I build the Shenzhen there. Even the Immortal Palace can't deal with the Shenzhen. The immortal kings of the Immortal Palace did not dare to enter the Southern Mountain Range. Even if the immortals of the Nine Heavens Xian Immortal Realm could enter the Southern Mountain Range, Murong Yu was not afraid. After all, he now had a large number of immortal expansion pills and immortal meridians. He could raise the Shenzhen disciple to the Nine Heavens Xian Immortal Realm in a short time. In this way, Murong Yu is naturally not afraid of these super forces. Moreover, under normal circumstances, no one would enter the Southern Mountain Range. Even if Murong Yu built the Shenzhen there, it would not be discovered in a short time. It would be safe for a short time. Moreover, even if it was discovered in the future, it would not be a big deal. With Murong Yu's cultivation speed, he would not be afraid of the Immortal Palace, Devil Sect, and other giants in the near future. Let's build the Shenzhen in the Southern Mountain Range. After pondering for a long time, Murong Yu gritted his teeth and finally decided to build the Immortal World Shenzhen in the Southern Mountain Range. The last task is to investigate the mysterious disappearance of the Palace Master of the Feng State Branch and reorganize the Feng State Branch. With my current strength, even if I investigate, I will not be able to find anything. I might as well put it aside for now and build the immortal world Shenzhen first. After deciding to build the Shenzhen in the southern mountain range, Murong Yu was somewhat anxious. After all, the disciples of the Shenzhen could not improve their strength at all if they cultivated in the cultivation world. The sooner they were brought to the immortal world, the stronger they would be. With a flash, Murong Yu entered the Hichu Luoshu world. When he reappeared, he was already in the Huaxia cultivation world, Shenzhen. Not long ago, before Murong Yu accepted the acknowledgement of the Huaxia cultivation world's origin, he had some understanding of the Huaxia cultivation world's development in the past few years. He also had some understanding of the Shenzhen. Therefore, when he returned to the Shenzhen, he went directly to the sacred palace. At this time, the sacred palace was empty. There was no one in the Shenzhen. Murong Yu's return was not discovered by anyone in the Shenzhen. Li Ling, Yang Man, Duan Muqing, come to the sacred palace quickly. Murong Yu immediately shouted after entering the sacred palace. Li Ling, Yang Man, Duan Muqing, and the others were all in the Shenzhen. This was because they had already reached the celestial immortal realm and had traveled all over the Huaxia cultivation world in the past few years. Therefore, they no longer had any interest in traveling the cultivation world. All they did was meditate and cultivate in the Shenzhen. Suddenly, a familiar voice rang in their ears while they were cultivating or doing other things. Who dares to call the Holy Master by his name? Hearing this shout, all the disciples in the Shenzhen were shocked. The Holy Master of the Shenzhen cultivation world was definitely a supreme existence. Generally, no one dared to call him by his name. Moreover, this person not only called the Holy Master by his name, but also the other elders and protectors. He even ordered them to gather in the sacred palace. Who on earth is this person? For a moment, the entire Shenzhen was in an uproar. However, compared to these puzzled disciples, those who had been called by Murong Yu, such as Li Ling, Duan Muqing, and the others, trembled. Then, their faces were filled with shock, astonishment, and surprise. The Holy Master is back. Duan Muqing and the others were overjoyed. Their bodies flashed and disappeared on the spot. When they reappeared, they had teleported into the sacred palace. This was the cultivation world. As long as one reached the tribulation stage, they could teleport. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Figures appeared in the sacred palace almost at the same time. These people were none other than Li Ling and the others. When they saw Murong Yu sitting on the seat of the sacred hall's master, they immediately became excited. It really is the Holy Master. The Holy Master has really returned from the immortal realm. The Holy Master is fine. Moreover, his realm is much higher than ours. He is really powerful. Duan Muqing and the others were extremely excited, but they did not forget to size up Murong Yu. Chapter 440. Many of the people present had used the Realm Break Pill and Immortal Ascension Pill to reach the Sky Immortal Realm. Therefore, their realms in the cultivation world were much higher than Murong Yu's. Murong Yu had not ascended for a long time, only a few years. However, at this moment, Murong Yu's strength was much higher than theirs. Just his realm alone was higher than theirs by a large realm. His true strength was incomparable. Although everyone knew that Murong Yu's cultivation speed had always been so abnormal that they could not catch up. If Murong Yu had not ascended to the immortal realm, he would not have been able to improve so quickly. In other words, Murong Yu's current strength was largely due to his ascension to the immortal realm. Of course, this was what everyone thought. However, they did not know that even if Murong Yu had not ascended to the immortal realm, he would have been able to achieve his current achievements quickly. This was because he did not rely on immortal spiritual energy to cultivate, but the chaotic energy. As long as the Tree of Life existed, Murong Yu would not lack the chaotic energy, and his strength would continue to increase. Sacred Master, did you come back this time to prepare for us to ascend to the immortal realm? Duan Muqing was the first to ask after recovering from his shock. Murong looked around at everyone and saw that Shengzhen and the rest were all present. Hence, he nodded and smiled. That's great. Can we finally ascend? Duan Muqing cheered. At the same time, the others were also very excited. As cultivators, what they pursued was greater strength and a longer lifespan. However, although they were already in the sky immortal realm, they had been trapped in the cultivation world and could not increase their strength at all. If they wanted to become stronger, they had to go to the immortal realm. However, before Murong ascended to the immortal realm, he told them not to ascend for the time being. Hence, although they wanted to ascend to the immortal realm, they kept Murong's words in mind and did not ascend. Of course, other than Shengzhen, there were some immortals from the Hidden Fairy Valley and the Mystic Moon sect who ascended. They didn't have much of a relationship with Murong, so even if they ascended to the immortal world, it didn't matter. However, Li Su, the little ape king, and the others who were familiar with Murong did not ascend. Although they had never been to the immortal world, they could imagine how dangerous it was. Moreover, he knew that Murong would return to the cultivation world soon. Therefore, they also planned to let Murong go to the immortal world to scout for information before making a decision. Holy Lord, have you killed all the enemies in the immortal world? At this moment, a weak voice sounded. It was Mu Lanchen. Hearing this, Murong couldn't help laughing. His enemies were at the level of the Immortal Palace and the Devil's Doctrine. With his current ability, he couldn't even touch the ordinary disciples of the Immortal Palace, let alone destroy them. Murong laughed. I really did destroy the Black Civ sect. Uprooted. Haha, I knew that the Holy Lord is invincible. Zhang Ao laughed loudly. The others also had excited looks on their faces. Murong was a little speechless when he saw the excitement on everyone's faces. Did these guys really think he was invincible? Perhaps he was invincible in the cultivation world, but in the immortal world, he was just a small shrimp. He continued, the Black Civ sect was just a small sect. There are many strong cultivators in the immortal world, and the number of powerful sects are like the grains of sand in the Ganges River. I'm just an exalted immortal. Being able to destroy the Black Civ sect was a stroke of luck. The smiles on everyone's faces instantly froze. Holy Lord, is the immortal world really as powerful and ferocious as you say? Sima Ryu frowned. In the immortal world, even the most remote province is larger than the entire cultivation world of Huaxia. The immortal world has millions of provinces. Think about it. Everyone's faces were filled with shock. In their minds, the immortal world they had imagined was large enough. But they didn't think it would be this large. The entire cultivation world of Huaxia wasn't even as large as the most remote province in the immortal world. And the cultivation world of Huaxia already had hundreds of millions of sects. What more the immortal world? It was hard to imagine how large the immortal world was and how many powerful sects there were. And if the cultivation world of Huaxia was so cruel, then the immortal world must be even more terrifying. But although the immortal world was large and there were many strong cultivators, there were also many opportunities. Murong sat on the main seat, calmly looking at everyone. He couldn't help but nod as he watched their faces turn from shock to yearning. The immortal world was indeed cruel, but it was more suitable for the strong to survive. Survival of the fittest. In the face of an even more cruel world, only by not fearing difficulties and facing them head-on could one achieve greater success. Holy Lord, when will we ascend? I can't wait to ascend to the immortal realm. Li Ling stepped forward and looked at Murong with excitement. Although this guy had been the Holy Lord of Shengzhen for a long time, his personality hadn't changed. They can ascend, but you can't for the time being. Murong suddenly said as he looked at Li Ling. Why? Li Ling was depressed, and the excitement in his heart was instantly extinguished. If you want to ascend, you must first nurture the next Holy Lord. If the next Holy Lord doesn't appear, you can forget about ascending. Murong said calmly. Li Ling complained in his heart. He had only been the Holy Lord for a few years. How could he have the time to nurture the next Holy Lord? And although Shenzhen developed quickly, it hadn't been long since it was established. Li Ling hadn't even considered nurturing the next Holy Lord. Glancing at everyone, Murong Yu continued. Other than Li Ling, this time, Shenzhen can only have a portion of immortals who have reached the sky immortal realm. Because I haven't established a sect in the immortal world. The first batch of ascenders, I will lead you to the immortal world. First, we will establish Shenzhen's sect in the immortal world. Then, we will accept Shenzhen's disciples. This was something that Murong Yu had long considered. Zhang Ao, Yang Man, Duan Muqing, go and prepare. In a few days, I will bring a portion of you to the immortal world. Murong Yu roughly explained the situation in the immortal world and the matter of establishing a sect. Then let them go and prepare. Holy Lord, Uncle, can I ascend to the immortal world? In the sacred palace, only Murong Yu and Li Ling were left. You can. Li Ling was overjoyed, but soon he became depressed again. He heard Murong Yu say, as long as the next Holy Lord ascends, you can ascend to the immortal world. Don't try to fool me. If I find out that you casually found someone to be the Holy Lord, I will make sure that you can never ascend to the immortal world. Li Ling was depressed. Just now, such a thought had indeed crossed his mind. However, it was discovered by Murong Yu. Looking at the depressed Li Ling, Murong Yu couldn't help but smile and continue. You have already become a celestial immortal, and your lifespan is extremely long. A few more years won't make a difference. Take care of Shenzhen for me. Don't neglect me, or you could forget about ascending to the immortal world for the rest of your life. Li Ling rolled his eyes and looked at Murong Yu rather speechlessly. Uncle, if I really want to ascend, you can't stop me, right? Li Ling didn't believe that Murong Yu was so heaven-defying that he could stop him from ascending. I am the ruler of the Huaxia self-cultivation world. As long as I don't agree, no one can ascend. Murong Yu said lightly. From a moment he was recognized by the Huaxia self-cultivation world. He had completely controlled the Huaxia self-cultivation world. Not to mention stopping Li Ling from ascending. Even stopping the entire Huaxia self-cultivation world from ascending was not a problem at all. Uncle, you are the enforcer of the Huaxia self-cultivation world? You are the ruler of the Huaxia self-cultivation world? Li Ling was shocked. In his position, he knew of the existence of the enforcers. That was why he was particularly shocked. Murong Yu nodded. After receiving Murong Yu's affirmation, Li Ling was even more shocked and excited. Haha, from now on, won't our Shenzhen always be the ruler of the Huaxia self-cultivation world? Will it never decline? With Murong Yu's support, as long as Murong Yu was still the enforcer of the Huaxia self-cultivation world, Shenzhen would never decline. This was Li Ling's thought. Murong Yu glanced at Li Ling indifferently. Although Shenzhen is a sect that I established, I am now the ruler of the entire Huaxia self-cultivation world. I will not deliberately favor Shenzhen. From the perspective of the enforcer, Shenzhen is the same as the other sects in the self-cultivation world. There is nothing special about it. Hearing Murong Yu's words, Li Ling was slightly disappointed. Seeing Li Ling's expression, how could Murong Yu not know what he was thinking? So he said with a smile, although I am the enforcer of the Huaxia self-cultivation world, I am also the founder of Shenzhen. Hearing this, Li Ling's eyes suddenly lit up. He already knew what Murong Yu was thinking. Murong Yu's last sentence had already expressed his attitude. After knowing Murong Yu's thoughts, Li Ling no longer bothered about this matter and said, Uncle, since you are back, go and see father and grandfather. They often talk about you. Murong Yu nodded. He and Li Feng were brothers. Although there was a difference between immortals and mortals, it did not dilute the feelings between them. Not only them, but this time, in addition to leading Shenzhen's immortals to the immortal realm, I also want to visit my old friends. Murong Yu smiled. In his mind, Zhao Jiqing's snow-white clothes and devastatingly beautiful appearance appeared. This time, in addition to Shenzhen's disciples, Murong Yu also had to give an explanation to the little ape king, Li Su, and the others. They were waiting for him to return from the immortal realm. After all, the immortal realm was too big. If they were allowed to ascend, who knew where they would ascend to? The immortal realm was so big. If they ascended to other places, it would be difficult to meet them in the future. In that case, I won't disturb Uncle. Li Ling was now a little anxious. He wanted to ascend to the immortal realm, but he needed to find a successor. Murong sat alone in the sacred hall for half a day before leaving. He walked toward the residence of Li Feng and the others in Shenzhen. Chapter 441. Hidden Fairy Valley, Qing Xian Peak. With the support of Murong Yu's elixirs and immortal meridians, Qing Xian Peak was undoubtedly the most powerful peak in the Hidden Fairy Valley. It was even more powerful than the main peak of the Hidden Fairy Valley. As one of the two sanuses of the Hidden Fairy Valley, Zhao Jiqing's strength had already broken through to the heavenly immortal realm a few years ago. However, because she did not have immortal spiritual energy, she had only broken through to the heavenly immortal realm. However, although Zhao Jiqing's strength and Qing Xian Peak were extremely powerful, she had always been the saintess of the Hidden Fairy Valley and had never become the Valley Master of the Hidden Fairy Valley. Apart from him, Li Su and Li Sisi were the same. It was not that they were not qualified to become the Valley Master of the Hidden Fairy Valley, but that they were not willing to be the Valley Master. After all, at their level of strength, they were no longer interested in the cultivation world. They only wanted to ascend to the immortal realm. However, because of what Murong Yu said before he ascended, they did not ascend. At this moment, Zhao Jiqing stood alone on the highest peak of Qing Xian Peak and looked into the distance. If Murong Yu was here, he would realize that Zhao Jiqing was standing at the place where the two of them had stood side by side and looked into the distance. Swoosh! Suddenly, the void beside Zhao Jiqing was torn open and a figure appeared behind Zhao Jiqing out of thin air. Zhao Jiqing's heart skipped a beat and she reacted immediately. She slapped her palm towards the figure that appeared out of thin air. However, very quickly, Zhao Jiqing's expression changed slightly, and her hand stopped halfway. Zhao Jiqing turned around abruptly, her face filled with excitement as she looked at the person who had just arrived. The first thing that came into view was Murong Yu's handsome face, which had a smile on it. The person who suddenly appeared was Murong Yu. After Shenzhen made arrangements for his ascension, he went to meet with Li Feng and the others. Then, through the Hichu Luoshu world, he directly went to Zhao Jiqing's side. Because Zhao Jiqing had the jade slip array formation on her body, Murong Yu could directly sense her existence, so he directly teleported over. However, when he saw how fast Zhao Jiqing was, he was shocked. Zhao Jiqing's reaction speed and strength were beyond Murong Yu's expectations. After 20 years, Zhao Jiqing had become more and more powerful. Although she couldn't compare with Murong Yu, Zhao Jiqing's strength could definitely rank in the top 3 in the current Huaxiao world of self-cultivation. Although Murong Yu had never seen Li Su, Little Rock King, and the others, he was certain of Zhao Jiqing's strength. "You're back." Zhao Jiqing looked at Murong Yu, her face filled with excitement. Murong Yu nodded. "I'm back." The two of them didn't speak much. They just looked at each other, then hugged. No words were needed to express their feelings. After a long time, the two of them separated. Although their relationship had been confirmed, Zhao Jiqing's face was still flushed with embarrassment. However, the many years of yearning and worry seemed to have been melted away by this hug. After that, the two of them stood side by side on the highest peak. Murong Yu told her everything that had happened after he'd chased the Black Civ sect disciple into the immortal realm. However, when he talked about Mu Liyue, Murong Yu felt a little awkward. The two of them had started off as enemies, but in the end, they'd mysteriously become husband and wife. They'd even done it as husband and wife. This made Murong Yu feel awkward, but at the same time, he felt guilty towards Zhao Jiqing. After all, Murong Yu wasn't a playboy. He'd never thought of having 3 or 4 wives. He'd always only had Zhao Jiqing in his heart. His feelings for Zhao Jiqing had always been the same. However, Murong Yu was a man who valued relationships. Since he'd already done it as husband and wife, he'd naturally take responsibility for Mu Liyue. However, he didn't know how to broach the subject to Zhao Jiqing. Before coming to Qingxian Peak, Morongyu had thought about this problem and how to broach the subject. However, now that he was facing Zhao Jiqing, Morongyu didn't know how to broach the subject. After all, this wasn't fair to Zhao Jiqing. It was too hurtful. Forget it. When the boat comes to the bridgehead, everything will be all right. Let nature take its course. Morongyu was conflicted in his heart for a long time. In the end, he still couldn't bring himself to say it. Zhao Jiqing sensed Morongyu's awkwardness and hesitation, but she didn't notice anything. She thought that Morongyu was hiding some dangerous things that happened in the immortal world and didn't want her to know. If Morongyu knew that Zhao Jiqing had such thoughts, wouldn't he be so ashamed that he wouldn't be able to show his face? This time, I'm preparing to build the primal chaos Shenzhen in the immortal world. I've returned to take away the people of Shenzhen. Why don't you come along? After Morongyu briefly introduced the vastness and cruelty of the immortal world, he said to Zhao Jiqing. Originally, Morongyu thought that Zhao Jiqing would immediately agree. However, he saw that Zhao Jiqing was frowning slightly. Her face revealed a hint of hesitation. The immortal world also has the hidden fairy valley. After all, I'm a disciple of the hidden fairy valley. This isn't too good, right? Zhao Jiqing was also a person who valued relationships. She was now a disciple of the hidden fairy valley. The hidden fairy valley in the immortal world and the hidden fairy valley in the cultivation world came from the same source. Under normal circumstances, after she ascended, she would join the hidden fairy valley in the immortal world. If she joined the Shenzhen after ascending, it wouldn't be too good. After all, she was where she was today because of the hidden fairy valley's nurturing. As the saying goes, one should remember the source when drinking water. She shouldn't join another sect. The immortal world also has the hidden fairy valley. Morongyu's voice was a little surprised. He didn't know that there was a hidden fairy valley in the immortal world. Other than the hidden fairy valley, were there other sects in the cultivation world that came from the same source in the immortal world? If that was the case, he would have a lot of enemies. Morongyu's face revealed a strange smile. He wasn't afraid of these sections. After all, the immortal world was so big. There were as many sects as there were grains of sand in the Ganges. The chances of him bumping into those sects in the cultivation world was almost zero. Even if he bumped into them, he wouldn't be afraid. The immortal world is too big. Moreover, ascension will randomly appear in the millions of continents in the immortal world. Even if you ascend, I'm afraid you won't be able to find the hidden fairy valley. Morongyu advised. When they entered the cultivation world, Morongyu didn't have the ability to protect Zhao Jiqing. That was why he let her join the hidden fairy valley. But now, Morongyu didn't want Zhao Jiqing to join other sections. I won't let you leave my side again. Morongyu persuaded for a while. Seeing that Zhao Jiqing was still hesitating, he hugged Zhao Jiqing and said domineeringly. Hearing Morongyu's domineering voice, Zhao Jiqing was a little happy. She finally decided, if that's the case, then I'll join Shenzhen. Only Qingxian Peak's disciple? Qingxian Peak's disciples were all trained by Zhao Jiqing. Now, there were more than 100 sky immortals. These people were all following Zhao Jiqing from the beginning. She didn't want to lose them just like that. Just take them with you, Morongyu said with a smile. She was only considering Zhao Jiqing's choice. As for the others, as long as they were willing, Morongyu would take them with him. Presumably, the hidden fairy valley wouldn't stop her. Because of the urgency of time, Morongyu didn't stay in Qingxian Peak for long before leaving the hidden fairy valley. He didn't even meet up with Li Su, who was close by. Mystic Moon Sect. I wonder how the big hooligan is doing in the immortal realm. Many years had passed. Yu Mengqing's strength had long reached the sky immortal realm. At this moment, she was sitting in the garden near her room. Morongyu's figure appeared in her mind. Girl, you're talking behind people's backs again. When did I? After hearing the sudden voice, Yu Mengqing replied out of habit. But before she could finish her sentence, Yu Mengqing was startled. With her current strength, who could silently appear by her side? Her reaction was the same as Zhao Jiqing's. The moment she reacted, she slapped in the direction of the voice. At the same time, she teleported away. Murongyu was depressed. The first time was like this, and the second time was the same. Could it be that their strength had increased? Their vigilance had also increased? In fact, Murongyu didn't expect that he knew the cause of Zhao Jiqing and Yu Mengqing's reactions, who asked him to appear out of thin air without a sound. With a flick of his finger, he turned Yu Mengqing's attack into nothing. However, Murongyu didn't stop because of this. Instead, he slapped toward Zhao Jiqing. An extremely dangerous aura came from behind. This shocked Yu Mengqing, who was already in the sky immortal realm. Who is this? He's actually so strong? At this moment, a drop of cold sweat appeared on Yu Mengqing's forehead. She felt the horror of this power. It was definitely not something she could take on with her strength. At this moment, the sentence just now suddenly appeared in her mind. He's a big hooligan. Yu Mengqing was surprised at first. Then her pretty face was filled with anger. Therefore, she didn't fight back. She just turned around and looked at Murongyu. Seeing that Yu Mengqing didn't fight back, Murongyu could only withdraw his power. This destroyed his idea of testing Yu Mengqing's strength. Big hooligan, it's really you. You bullied me as soon as you came back. Yu Mengqing gritted her teeth and looked at Murongyu. She was very angry. However, before she finished speaking, her eyes turned red and she was about to cry. Seeing this, Murongyu was shocked. Yu Mengqing's reaction really caught him off guard. I just wanted to test your reaction and strength. Murongyu smiled embarrassedly. You only know how to bully me. Yu Mengqing looked at Murongyu with hatred. Her eyes were filled with tears, and she looked very wronged. This girl, how did she become like this? Murongyu suddenly felt a headache. He was most afraid of women's tears. When he saw a woman's tears, no matter how strong he was always at a loss and didn't know how to comfort her. Seeing Murongyu at a loss, Yu Mengqing glared at him fiercely. Idiot! Chapter 442. Yanhuang Immortal Realm, Lingnan Region, Forbidden Ground Nanling. Whoosh! A figure appeared out of thin air in front of the building where the Blackwind stronghold was. After this figure appeared, over 100 figures appeared in succession. Wow! Is this the Immortal Realm? What dense immortal essence chi! As soon as these people appeared, they felt the extremely rich, immortal spiritual energy. Their faces were filled with shock and astonishment. Such dense, immortal essence chi. Cultivating here will be twice the result with half the effort. How can the immortal essence chi in the immortal realm be so dense? These people were all shocked. From their words, it seemed like this was their first time in the immortal realm. Some people even impatiently sat cross-legged on the ground and began to cultivate. Murongyu, is this Nanling? A devastatingly beautiful woman in snow-white clothes walked up to Murongyu's side and asked in a low voice. She was Zhao Jiqing. That's right, these people were Murongyu and the others. When Murongyu returned to the Huaxia Immortal Realm, he decided to bring Shenzhen's people up. Besides them, Zhao Jiqing, Yu Mengqing, Li Su, Little Ape King, Little Rock King, and the others were all brought up. Of course, other than Shenzhen's people, Murongyu brought up his friends. As for the immortals from the Hidden Fairy Valley, Xianyue sect, and other sects, Murongyu did not bring a single one. After all, these people were not Shenzhen's disciples. Even if they were brought up, they would not stay in Shenzhen. Besides, before Murongyu returned to the immortal realm, these sects had already had immortals ascending. This is Nanling. It is the place with the densest immortal essence chi in Lingnan region. Murongyu nodded and waved his hand, releasing some of Shenzhen's disciples from the Hichu, Luoshu world. At the same time, there were also the thousands of immortals that Murongyu had subdued in the immortal world. Murongyu didn't set up the sect immediately. Instead, he let these people familiarize themselves with the immortal world's southern mountain range. As for the matter of establishing a sect in the southern mountains, Murongyu had already mentioned it to them. However, regarding the phantom sect's vengeful spirits, Murongyu had only mentioned it to Zhao Jiqing and a few others. He did not want to affect Shenzhen's ordinary disciples. For 3 days in a row, Murong, you let Shangzhen's disciples do as they please, allowing them to familiarize themselves with the southern ridge. During this process, some immortals even broke through to the next realm. As the saying goes, good preparation leads to good results. Those existences with heaven-defying talent, who had been stuck in the cultivation world for more than 10 years, under the support of the rich, immortal spiritual energy in the southern mountain range, breaking through to the next realm was not surprising. 3 days later, Murong Yu gathered tens of thousands of people and started to build a sect on top of the original foundation of the Black Wind Stockade. Tens of thousands of people. Each and every one of them was a powerful immortal. In just a few days, buildings rose from the ground, and the Chaos Shangzhen sect began to take shape. In the following time, everyone worked hard together. A month later, a sect that was several times larger than the Huaxia cultivation world was built. The Chaos Shangzhen of the immortal world was officially established. After the Chaos Shangzhen was established, Murong Yu assigned various tasks to Yang Man, Duanmu Qing, and the others to continue to transform Shangzhen. At this time, Murong Yu was also busy. The Juexian Great Formation. With Hichu's help, Murong Yu began to set up the jutting immortal formation outside Shangzhen. Although under normal circumstances, no one would go deep into the southern mountain range, it did not mean that no one would really enter the southern mountain range. And now, although Shangzhen had a 9 heavens Xian immortal expert guarding it, Murong Yu did not want to put Shangzhen in danger. After all, he had too many enemies. Although a dozen 9 heavens Xian immortals looked very powerful, they were nothing compared to the immortal palace. Murong Yu wanted to do his best to ensure the safety of Shangzhen. After all, this was his sect. After 3 months and using tens of thousands of immortal weapons, the jutting immortal formation was finally completed. Murong Yu even used a royal armament as the eye of the formation. That day, on Mount Wuji of the Heavenly Punisher Palace, Murong Yu defeated Mo Foe of the Fire Beacon Cultivation World and won 3 royal armaments. Therefore, other than using a royal armament as the eye of the jutting immortal formation, he also placed a royal armament in Shangzhen as Shangzhen's guardian divine weapon. In a few months, the immortal world of Shangzhen was on the right track. Murong Yu was the sacred master, while Yang Man, Duanmu Qing, Zhang Ao, and the others were the elders, protectors, and so on. Immortal world, Shangzhen, in the sacred palace. Murong Yu, the upper echelons of Shangzhen, and Zhao Jiqing were gathered together. They seemed to be discussing some matters. Sacred Master, although our immortal world of Shangzhen has been established and is on the right track. However, how are we going to accept the disciples of Shangzhen who have ascended from the cultivation world? Duanmu Qing asked with a frown. The others also looked at Murong Yu. This was their common problem. The immortal world was simply too big. Every continent was bigger than the cultivation world of Huaxia, and they were known as the Million Continents. The most important thing was that the people who ascended from the cultivation world were random. They would appear in any of the million continents of the immortal world. Although the immortal world of Shangzhen had been established, it was unable to accept the disciples of the cultivation world of Shangzhen. Even if the disciples of the cultivation world knew that the Shangzhen of the immortal world of Shangzhen was in the depths of the southern mountains, they could still come to the immortal world of Shangzhen if they ascended to the southern mountains. However, what if they ascended to the other continents? With their strength, they might not even be able to cross to the southern mountains. Once this happened, the immortal world of Shangzhen would not be able to accept disciples from the lower worlds. Murong Yu also frowned. He couldn't bring the people of the cultivation world of Shangzhen to the immortal world of Shangzhen every single time, right? This was an impractical idea. However, how could he let the disciples of the Shangzhen of the lower worlds ascend to the immortal world of Shangzhen or the southern mountains? Murong Yu also had no idea. It seems like I have to discuss this matter with Hichu. If even Hichu has no idea, then I can only see if the Heavenly Punisher Palace has a solution. Murong Yu thought gloomily. I'll think about this problem first. I'll definitely find a solution. Murong Yu said faintly. He temporarily suppressed this problem. Is our Shenzhen only accepting disciple from the lower worlds, or are we also accepting disciple from the immortal world? If we only accept the disciples of the Shenzhen of the lower worlds, then we must solve the problem of their ascension. Moreover, even if there are realm-breaking pills and immortal ascension pills in the lower worlds, there aren't many who can break through to the immortal world of Shenzhen. In this way, the development of our immortal world of Shenzhen will be hindered. This was also a problem. After these years of development, the Shenzhen of the lower worlds was already strong enough. Murong, you had gradually reduced the use of realm-breaking pills and immortal ascension pills. After all, blindly using pills to increase one's strength was not very good for the cultivators themselves. Now that the Shenzhen of the lower worlds was the absolute #1 force, Murong, you did not approve of them continuing to use these pills. One's strength had to be cultivated step by step to be solid. For the time being, we won't accept disciple from the outside. Moreover, our Shenzhen of the lower worlds is still in its initial stage. It's not suitable for us to accept disciple from the outside. Once the problem of ascension is solved and Shenzhen is strong enough, then we can accept disciples from the outside. Murong, you said, the current Shenzhen of the lower worlds was still in a state of secrecy. Once they accepted disciples from the outside, Shenzhen's existence would definitely be exposed. Once they were discovered by the Immortal Palace, they would probably be destroyed immediately. Murong Yu's intention was to slowly develop the Shenzhen of the lower worlds. After solving a series of problems, Murong Yu announced another shocking news. From today onwards, Zhao Jiqing will be the Holy Lord of the Shenzhen. When this news came out, it immediately shocked everyone in the main hall. They had no objections to Murong Yu's decision. After all, they were familiar with Zhao Jiqing and had already been recognized as the wife of the Holy Lord. They did not have any objections to her. However, they were still shocked and did not know what Murong Yu was doing. You don't have to be surprised. I have a deeper meaning for this arrangement. In the immortal world, I have many enemies, and they are extremely powerful. Once they find out that I am the Holy Lord of the Shenzhen, they will definitely do harm to Shenzhen. Therefore, on the surface, Zhao Jiqing is the Holy Lord of the Shenzhen. However, in reality, I am still the Holy Lord of the Shenzhen. I will not abandon the Shenzhen. Everyone suddenly understood. Zhao Jiqing did not have any strange expression. Murong Yu had already obtained her consent. Otherwise, he would not have rashly made her the Holy Lord of the Shenzhen. From then on, Zhao Jiqing became the Holy Lord of the Shenzhen. As for Murong Yu, he was the invisible Holy Lord of the Shenzhen, the founder of the Shenzhen sect. In the Hichu Luoshu world, Murong Yu found Hichu. It's very simple. You just need to build a transfer array in the Shenzhen. The disciples of the Shenzhen in the lower realm can use the transfer array to directly transfer to the immortal world Shenzhen. After hearing that Murong Yu wanted to solve the problem of the disciples of the Shenzhen in the lower realm ascending, Hichu said indifferently, "So simple." Murong Yu was pleasantly surprised. He quickly said, "Then quickly build the transfer array." "I don't have the materials," Hichu said indifferently. Murong Yu was so angry that he vomited blood. "What materials do you need? Are the materials that were used to build the transfer array not enough?" When building the Hichu Luoshu transfer array, one only needed a jade slip and some arrays were engraved on it. Hichu rolled his eyes. "Do you think that building a transfer array between the two realms is so simple? It requires a lot of special materials. I don't have any of them. As for the Hichu Luoshu transfer array, it is very special and easy to build. What materials do you need? Where can I find these materials?" Murong Yu asked. He urgently wanted to solve this problem. Yuan Meteor Stone, Space Crystal, Space Stone, 3-star Stone. Hichu said dozens of materials in one breath. Murong Yu rolled his eyes. "What materials are these? Why haven't I heard of them?" Murong Yu was speechless. He had never heard of these materials. How could he find these materials? Hichu sneered. "These are the materials used to build transfer arrays in the ancient times." Now, the immortal world doesn't even have transfer arrays. It's not normal for you to have heard of these materials. Chapter 443. Yuan Meteor Stone, Spatial Crystal, Dark Sky Stone, 3-star Stone. Morong was depressed when he heard Hichu list out materials he'd never heard of. Materials used to build teleportation arrays in ancient times? There are no more teleportation arrays in the immortal world? What's the reason for that? Is it because of the materials, or because the method to build teleportation arrays has been lost? Morong came to these two conclusions from Hichu's words. Although there weren't many of these materials in ancient times, there were still quite a few of them. Even in the immortal world, there should still be these materials. The lack of teleportation arrays in the immortal world today isn't because of the lack of materials. Hichu said slowly, if it wasn't a problem with the materials, then the method to build teleportation arrays had been lost in the immortal world. However, he too, this monstrous existence, knew too many things. Morong wouldn't have been surprised even if he had some ancient inheritance that had been severed. Morong was naturally pleasantly surprised that Hichu could build a teleportation array. However, the problem with the materials made things difficult for Morong. Oh well, the teleportation array must be built. I'll go out and search for the materials after the time is up. Morong muttered to himself, but didn't leave the Nanling Mountains. After all, Shenzhen had only been established not long ago. Although it was on the right track, Morong still couldn't leave. In the following days, Morong returned to the immortal world and brought most of the remaining immortals of Shenzhen to Shenzhen. Only a small number of people were left behind to guard Shenzhen. A year later, Li Su, the little ape king, the little lion king, and Utong found Morong and asked him about their trip. Although Morong was a bit surprised that they'd left the Nanling Mountains so quickly, he didn't stop them. After all, they were not Shenzhen's people. They had their own paths to walk and could not be tied to Shenzhen. Before they left, Morong gave each of them a batch of pills, including immortal expansion pills, immortal spirit pills, and so on. In addition, each of them also received an immortal artifact. Little Rock King, you should also leave, Morong suddenly said, looking at the hesitant Little Rock King. At this time, the Little Rock King had already reached the celestial immortal realm, and he was not one of Shenzhen's people, so he should be able to go out and explore. However, when he lost to Morong back then, he had always strictly followed his promise to be Morong's mount. Even though Morong no longer needed him, he did not leave Shenzhen. Hearing this, the Little Rock King's eyes immediately revealed a wisp of light. Although he had reached the celestial immortal realm, he realized that the gap between him and Morong was getting wider and wider. He also understood that fighting was the best way to increase his strength. If he continued to cultivate in Shenzhen, perhaps his strength would continue to increase, but it would definitely not be as fast as going out and adventuring. However, he could not leave because of his promise back then. I am your mount. I will not leave Shenzhen, the Little Rock King said calmly, suppressing the throbbing in his heart. Your speed is far inferior to mine. You are no longer qualified to be my mount, Morong sneered. In the celestial world, those who had not reached the golden immortal realm could not fly, but some bird-type monsters did not have this restriction. For example, as long as he transformed into his true body, he could still fly in the celestial world. It was just that his speed was not as fast as imagined. Compared to Morong, his flying speed was still not as fast as Morong's. Even so, I am still your mount. This cannot be changed. The Little Rock King's face was ugly, but he still said resolutely, at this moment, my speed is already 100 times, 1,000 times faster than yours. It is meaningless for you to be by my side. On the contrary, you will even drag me down. If you really want to keep your promise back then, you can go and increase your strength first. When your speed is enough to be my mount, I don't mind you being my mount. The Little Rock King's expression kept changing. Although Morong's words were unpleasant, the Little Rock King knew that Morong was telling the truth. Moreover, Morong's words had another meaning, to let him go out and experience and increase his strength. The gap between my strength and Murong-Yu's is getting bigger and bigger. It won't take long before I can't even look up to him. The little rock king thought to himself. Back in the cultivation world, he was ranked above Murong-Yu. At the same time, he was also a descendant of the golden-winged rock clan and was arrogant by nature. However, he had lost to Murong-Yu in the end. After thinking for a moment, the little rock king finally made up his mind. All right, I won't disappoint you. Before he even finished speaking, the little rock king turned to leave. Wait a moment. Murong-Yu stopped the little rock king. At the same time, he tossed a batch of pills and immortal tools to the little rock king. The immortal realm is dangerous. With these things, you can avoid some unnecessary dangers. Thank you. The little rock king accepted the items and said his thanks. Then, he rushed out of the sacred palace and left. It's time to go out and search for materials for teleportation formations. After Li Su and the others left, Murong-Yu also prepared to leave the sacred palace. After giving some pills, immortal expansion pills, and immortal tools to Zhao Jiqing, Murong-Yu left Shenzhen and the southern mountains. This time, apart from Little Purple and the large black dog, he didn't bring anyone else with him. He left the thousands of immortals he had subdued in the immortal realm in Shenzhen. Apart from the fact that he needed their strength to protect Shenzhen, Murong-Yu also didn't want to take them with him. Murong-Yu discovered that once he took them with him, he would develop the mentality of not doing anything when they encountered something. For example, after completing the 2 missions from the Heavenly Punisher Palace, he almost didn't do anything. If this continued, it would be disadvantageous for him. After all, the immortal realm was a place where the fist was the truth. If Murong-Yu relied on the strength of others for a long time and neglected his own strength, then Murong-Yu would never be able to become stronger. Fight! Fight! Only through fighting and being limited to danger can I quickly improve my cultivation level. Murong-Yu roared in his mind. Although he was now an exalted immortal and had reached the golden immortal realm, he was still too weak. He was still at the bottom of the immortal realm. If he wanted to fight against a giant like the immortal palace, he must have great strength. With a flash, Murong-Yu disappeared from the Hichu Luoshu world. When he reappeared, he was already in the Heavenly Punisher Palace, in his 1-star manner. Yuan Meteor Stone, Space Crystal, Space Stone. Steward Ma frowned slightly and looked at Murong-Yu with an awkward expression. How is it? Steward Ma shook his head awkwardly. I haven't heard of these, but I know about the 3-star stone. The 3-star stone is the hardest material in the world, but I don't know what the palace lord uses it for. Murong-Yu frowned slightly. Seeing Murong-Yu frown, Steward Ma's heart skipped a beat. He was just a servant. How could he know about the matters of the palace lord? This old servant was too impulsive. I shouldn't have inquired about the palace master's matters. I truly deserve to die 1,000 times over. Steward Ma had an apologetic look on his face. He thought that Murong-Yu was frowning because of his question. It's okay. I have my own use for these. Steward Ma, have you heard of the 3-star stone? Do you know where I can find a 3-star stone? Where can I find the other materials? The 3-star stone is not difficult to find. Because of its hardness, it has always been a material used to forge divine weapons. Although it is rare, it can usually be bought. As for other places, you should be able to find it in some auction houses or chambers of commerce. However, the palace lord can try the information of the Heavenly Punisher Palace. Perhaps there will be unexpected gains. Seeing that Murong-Yu did not blame him for asking too much, Steward Ma was overjoyed. Then, he gave a detailed introduction to Murong-Yu. Auction house, Heavenly Punisher Palace. Murong-Yu frowned slightly, then looked at Steward Ma and said, Steward Ma, not bad. Thank you. After saying that, Murong-Yu left the manor and walked towards Mount Wuji. This palace lord seems to be not bad. Looking at Murong-Yu's back, Steward Ma was slightly moved. 3-star stone, spatial crystal, Yuan Meteor Stone. Murong-Yu was looking through the information of the Heavenly Punisher Palace and was pleasantly surprised to find the existence of these materials. However, it was only some related information. As for where these materials existed, the information did not state. Is my authority not enough? Morong frowned slightly. These were only the introductions of the materials. They were useless to Morong because he already knew the source of these materials. For example, the Yuan meteor stone was a material formed after the stars in the sky fell to the immortal world. It was extremely rare. As for the spatial crystal, as the name implied, it was a crystal formed after the space was shattered. Generally speaking, after the stars fell to the immortal world, they would form meteorites and meteoric iron. However, the Yuan meteor stone was of a much higher grade than the meteoric iron. There might not even be one Yuan meteor stone in hundreds of millions of meteorites. However, the spatial crystal was much simpler. As long as the void was shattered, it was possible to obtain the spatial crystal. Of course, this only referred to the space of the immortal world. Moreover, space was easy to shatter, but it was difficult to obtain the spatial crystal. Therefore, the spatial crystal had always been rare. It was almost as rare as the Yuan meteor stone. According to Hichu, in the ancient times, these materials were simply ordinary materials. Otherwise, the teleportation arrays would not be so common. In the ancient times, there were too many experts. They could easily shatter the void and obtain large amounts of spatial crystal. However, how could there be so many Yuan meteor stones? Could it be that the experts in the ancient times could pluck the stars? Morong looked at the sky of the immortal world. It was unknown how high it was. How could those stars be touched? If the experts in the ancient times were really so powerful, then it was really terrifying. Maybe I should go to Lingnan City to take a look. Morong saw that the Heavenly Punisher Palace did not have the detailed information of these materials. He could only go to Lingnan City to take a look. After all, there were more auction houses and merchant associations. Chapter 444. As one of the 10 great states out of the millions of great states in the world of immortals, Lingnan City was one of the largest cities in the world of immortals. It was bustling with activity. It spanned tens of millions of kilometers. This was the scale of Lingnan City. In China's cultivation world, all of the monster spirits had gathered at the Demon Mountain before they'd been born. The Demon Mountain, on the other hand, spanned no more than 1,000,000 kilometers. In other words, Lingnan City was 10 times the size of the Demon Mountain. If such a large sinking pool was placed in the cultivation world, it would take some weaker cultivators a few months to travel from east to west, or even longer. At this moment, Morong was standing not too far away from South Ridge City. He was looking at the city with a face full of shock. He was completely stunned by the majestic and vast city. Lingnan is indeed one of the 10 great states of the world of immortals. Lingnan City is too stunning. Morong finally reacted after a long pause. Not long after, he entered Lingnan City. As the largest city in Lingnan, Lingnan City was home to countless immortals. Countless factions and sects had branches here, and some even had their headquarters within the city. Even the Heavenly Punisher Palace had a branch in South Ridge City. Apart from these sects, there were also countless merchant guilds, auction houses, and various other business organizations. Of the 10 great merchant guilds in the world of immortals, the Four Ways Merchant Guild specializes in medicinal ingredients, while the Pinnacle Merchant Guild specializes in refining materials. Before coming to Lingnan City, Morong had already inquired about the various famous merchant guilds and auction houses in the world of immortals. He knew that the Pinnacle Merchant Guild specialized in refining materials. In fact, while the Pinnacle Merchant Guild specialized in refining materials, that didn't mean they only dealt in refining materials. The 10 great merchant guilds of the world of immortals were all comprehensive businesses. They all had their own strengths. For example, the Pinnacle Merchant Guild was more prominent in refining materials. Similarly, the Four Ways Merchant Guild specialized in other businesses and had the most complete collection of medicinal ingredients among the 10 great merchant guilds. Thus, Morong headed straight for the Pinnacle Merchant Guild. The headquarters of the great merchant guilds weren't in Lingnan City. But even so, the scale of their branch here was extremely shocking. There were many magnificent buildings with luxurious decorations. There were people everywhere, and business was booming. Even so, when Murong-yu entered the Pinnacle Merchant Guild, a worker greeted him with a smile. He didn't neglect Murong-yu's status at all. "I need to buy some materials." Murong-yu didn't wait for the worker to speak. "Dear customer, please follow me to the materials area." The shop assistant politely led Murong-yu past a few buildings and into the materials area. At this point, it must be mentioned that because every chamber of commerce was a comprehensive chamber of commerce, they had a wide variety of products. Of the Pinnacle Merchant Guild. Of the Pinnacle Merchant Guild. Our Pinnacle Merchant Guild has the most complete collection of materials among the 10 great merchant guilds. As long as you can think of a material, our Pinnacle Merchant Guild has it. There isn't a material that can't be found here. On the way, the worker tried his best to promote his guild. Murong-yu only smiled at this. Whether the Pinnacle Merchant Guild lived up to its name wasn't something that could be bragged about. It had to be proven with facts. This is the materials area. There are samples of various materials inside. If there's any material that you fancy, we can trade it directly. This was an extremely spacious building with 3 floors. Even though it wasn't as impressive as the previous building, it was still very luxurious. Just like the worker said, the building was filled with samples of various materials. It was dazzling and dazzling. After watching for a while, Murong-yu stopped in his tracks. He wasn't good at forging, so he wasn't familiar with these materials. It could even be said that he didn't recognize any of the dozens or hundreds of materials here. "I need dozens of materials. I won't look at them one by one. Take a look at what you have." As he spoke, Murong-yu handed a list of materials to the worker. "Don't worry. You've made the right choice by coming to our Pinnacle Merchant Guild. This time, we'll definitely let you return with a bountiful harvest. Yuan Meteor Stone, Spatial Crystal Fragment, 3-star Stone, Sky Stone." The shop assistant glanced at the list of materials in his hand as he bragged about the Pinnacle Chamber of Commerce to Murong-yu. "What materials are these? I've never heard of them before." The worker looked at Murong-yu in shock. He even had a look of caution in his eyes. There were 60 to 70 types of materials listed on the list. The worker had only heard of a dozen or so materials. The Pinnacle Merchant Guild didn't even sell 10 types of materials. Could it be that he's here to cause trouble? The worker looked at Murong-yu in shock as the vigilance in his eyes grew even stronger. He had worked in the Pinnacle Merchant Guild for many years and was very knowledgeable about the products they sold. Now that he had never heard of these materials, he suspected that Murong-yu was sent by a competitor to cause trouble. "Sir, if you're here to do business, the Pinnacle Merchant Guild welcomes you. However, if the Pinnacle Merchant Guild isn't something that anyone can afford to offend." The worker suspected that Murong-yu was here to cause trouble, so his tone was no longer as polite as before. He even sounded like he was warning him. How could Murong-yu not understand the worker's meaning? His face immediately darkened. "Didn't you say that the Pinnacle Merchant Guild had no materials that you couldn't find? Now that you can't find the materials I need, you suspect that I'm here to cause trouble? Is this how the Pinnacle Merchant Guild does business?" Murong-yu's voice wasn't very loud, but the people in the Pinnacle Merchant Guild weren't ordinary people. In an instant, everyone on the first floor heard Murong use angry words. Hence, all the customers and workers turned to look at him. "Sir, aren't you deliberately trying to cause trouble for our Pinnacle Chamber of Commerce by using something that doesn't exist?" The shop assistant was a little annoyed. He could tell at a glance that the materials were fake. "Murong-yu still didn't admit it? Look at where you are. How dare you cause trouble for the Pinnacle Merchant Guild? You're asking for death." The worker sneered. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Hearing the shop assistant's words, the other staff members of the Pinnacle Chamber of Commerce immediately rushed over and surrounded Murong-yu. Seeing this, Murong-yu was inwardly furious. Who is this person? How dare he cause trouble for the Pinnacle Merchant Guild? Doesn't he know how powerful the Pinnacle Merchant Guild is? He's asking for death. What an idiot. Sigh, of all the places to cause trouble, he just had to cause trouble for the Pinnacle Merchant Guild. He really doesn't know how to spell the word death. I think there's something wrong with his head. Why else would he cause trouble for the Pinnacle Merchant Guild? Hearing their words, the customers on the first floor started to point at Murongyu. They all thought that Murongyu was here to cause trouble. Please leave the Pinnacle Merchant Guild immediately. Otherwise, the Pinnacle Merchant Guild will ask you to leave. The worker who received Murongyu said coldly to Murongyu. Murongyu took a deep breath, barely suppressing the anger and killing intent in his heart. He looked at the workers surrounding him and said coldly, "Are you representing the Pinnacle Merchant Guild? We deal with people who cause trouble in the Pinnacle Merchant Guild the same way." The worker who received Murongyu said impatiently. As he spoke, the workers looked at Murongyu nervously. After all, they were only in the sky immortal realm. Murongyu's cultivation level was much higher than theirs. However, when they saw a few people rushing in from outside, their nervousness disappeared. This was because one of the few people who came had reached the golden immortal realm. There were some guards, bodyguards, and the like. He purposely caused trouble in the Pinnacle Merchant Guild. Chase him out. The worker who received Murongyu pointed at Murongyu and said to the people who came in. The leader of the Golden Immortals looked at Murongyu and said, "Kid, are you going to leave on your own, or do you want us to force you out?" I'll say it again. I'm not here to cause trouble. The materials I need are not fake. It's fine if the Pinnacle Merchant Guild doesn't have them, but you're accusing me of causing trouble. Is this how the Pinnacle Merchant Guild does things? Murongyu's anger and killing intent could no longer be suppressed. Kid, you're here to cause trouble, and yet you're still so arrogant. I'm going to strangle you to death. The Golden Immortal laughed and pounced on Murongyu. In the process, he reached out his hand and grabbed Murongyu's neck. He wanted to break his neck. Murongyu's eyes were filled with killing intent. The anger and killing intent that he had been suppressing for a long time finally exploded the moment the Golden Immortal attacked. "You're courting death," Murongyu bellowed and took a step forward. Next, he unleashed the elephant-pulling fist of 1,000 armies against the incoming Gold Immortal's hand. This attack contained 80% of Murongyu's strength. It was so frightening that even space itself started to distort from the impact. This time, Murongyu came to buy materials, but was accused of causing trouble by the Pinnacle Merchant Guild. The Pinnacle Merchant Guild's unreasonable actions had made him furious. Therefore, he didn't hold back when he attacked. Crack! Bang! Murongyu's fist and the Golden Immortal's hand collided fiercely halfway to each other. Then the crisp sound of bones shattering could be heard. This kid, a mere exalted immortal, dares to attack a Golden Immortal? Isn't he courting death? At this moment, everyone, including the Golden Immortal, thought that Murongyu would die. Chapter 445. Murongyu is only an exalted immortal. In the immortal world, the difference of one realm was like a chasm between heaven and earth. It was unsurpassable and impossible to kill someone who was an entire realm higher. Therefore, no one thought highly of Murongyu in the beginning. After all, his opponent was a Golden Immortal. When they heard the crisp sound of bones breaking, everyone thought that Murongyu had been killed. At the very least, he would be severely injured. However, they were soon shocked to discover that the sound of bones breaking didn't come from Murongyu's body. It came from Murongyu's opponent, the Golden Immortal from the Pinnacle Chamber of Commerce. The Golden Immortal's entire arm was twisted like a fried dough twist when he clashed with Murongyu's fist. The clothes on his hands were completely shredded. Broken bones even drilled out from the skin on his hands. The white bones were eerie and extremely terrifying. Only then did the Golden Immortal cry out in pain. Murongyu's face was filled with murderous intent. Murongyu's hand did not stop after smashing the Golden Immortal's arm. Ugh! The Golden Immortal's scream was cut short. There was no other reason other than the fact that Murongyu had grabbed him by the neck and lifted him above his head like a little chick. Seeing this scene, everyone on the first floor was stunned. This kid was only an exalted immortal. How could his strength be so terrifying? A Golden Immortal was like an ant in front of him, unable to withstand a single blow. Could he be a hidden expert, a wolf in sheep's clothing? For a moment, The guests on the first floor were stunned by Murong Yu's attack. Perhaps there were immortals on the first floor who were much stronger than Murong Yu, but they were still shocked. Murong Yu was only an exalted immortal, but he had almost killed a golden immortal in seconds. If Murong Yu wanted to, the golden immortal from the Pinnacle Chamber of Commerce would definitely be killed in seconds. Put him down. After recovering from their shock, the workers and hired thugs of the Pinnacle Chamber of Commerce finally reacted. However, due to the difference in strength, they did not immediately make a move. They only looked at Murong Yu and shouted. As for the waiter who had received Murong Yu earlier, he was now even more certain that Murong Yu was here to cause trouble. This fellow was clearly not an ascendant immortal. He was pretending to be a pig to eat the tiger. If he was not here to cause trouble, then what was he? The golden immortal from the Chamber of Commerce had his neck grabbed by Murong Yu, but he found it difficult to breathe. His eyes were bloodshot, and he looked terrified. His legs were kicking wildly. However, he did not dare to attack Murong Yu. He knew that if he continued to provoke Murong Yu would only need to exert a little force to break his neck. I'll say it again. I'm not here to cause trouble. I won't attack unless I'm attacked, but if I'm attacked, I'll return the favor tenfold. Murong Yu glanced coldly at the workers. The murderous intent in his eyes was extremely terrifying. Seeing the murderous intent in Murong Yu's eyes, the workers felt a chill in their hearts. They looked away, not daring to meet Murong Yu's eyes. This is the Pinnacle Chamber of Commerce. It's not a place for you to do as you please. Let him go now, or you won't be able to leave this place. Relying on the fact that he was a member of the Pinnacle Chamber of Commerce, the shop assistant who had received Murong Yu earlier had an unyielding attitude and insisted that Murong Yu was here to cause trouble. Pinnacle Chamber of Commerce? That's all there is to it. Murong Yu snorted, his tone full of disdain. Who's causing trouble at the Pinnacle Chamber of Commerce? Just then, a cold voice sounded. At the same time, Murong Yu felt a powerful and terrifying aura envelop him. An expert. Murong Yu's heart skipped a beat as he turned to look at the entrance. He saw 5 people walking slowly toward him. The person in the lead was a middle-aged man in a green robe. He must be the one who had spoken earlier. This person is at least an overarching heavenly supreme celestial. Murong Yu glanced at the middle-aged man. He could vaguely sense the middle-aged man's cultivation base based on the aura he emitted. Behind the middle-aged man, there was a middle-aged burly man. This man's aura was violent and fierce. His eyes emitted an extremely invasive gaze. When he made contact with Murong Yu felt a slight stinging pain in his eyes, and his head felt as if it was about to explode. Great overarching golden celestial. Murong Yu was shocked. However, he maintained his composure as he looked at these people. Apart from these 2 people, the other 3 people were ordinary golden celestials. The staff of the Peak Chamber of Commerce was overjoyed when they saw the newcomers. Manager, he's the one who came to cause trouble and even took a hostage. The staff who had served Murong Yu earlier said angrily as he pointed at Murong Yu. The manager of the Peak Chamber of Commerce, the middle-aged man in a green robe, looked at Murong Yu coldly. How dare you cause trouble in the Peak Chamber of Commerce? You're digging your own grave. The man who seemed to be a perfected golden immortal shouted as he took a step forward. His large hand abruptly stretched out and grabbed at Murong Yu. Wait. The middle-aged man in a green robe stopped the great overarching golden celestial's attack. He looked at Murong Yu indifferently and frowned slightly. Friend, why are you causing trouble in the Peak Chamber of Commerce? Who are you working for? Dong Yuan was the manager of the Peak Chamber of Commerce's branch in Lingnan City. Although he was only an overarching heavenly supreme celestial, he was a shrewd businessman. That was why he was able to become the manager of the Peak Chamber of Commerce in Lingnan City when he was only an overarching heavenly supreme celestial. Dong Yuan was puzzled when he received news that someone was causing trouble in the material section. Who would cause trouble in the Peak Chamber of Commerce? Was this not a death wish? As one of the top 10 chambers of commerce in the celestial realm, there were many competitors. It was not uncommon for competitors to hire people to cause trouble. Usually, Dong Yuan would not personally deal with such a situation. He would only hire bodyguards to chase the troublemaker out of the Chamber of Commerce. However, today he found out that this troublemaker had come with a list of made-up materials to cause trouble. This matter made Dong Yuan feel strange. He vaguely felt that today's matter was not as simple as deliberately causing trouble. Therefore, he brought the experts to the materials section. As soon as Dong Yuan saw Murongyu, he knew this person was not simple. Moreover, he did not seem like a troublemaker. However, he still decided to ask. Murongyu reached out and threw the golden immortal who was almost dead. He sneered and said, "You are the manager of the Peak Chamber of Commerce? Your eyesight is not good either. Why don't you take a look at my list before you decide if I am here to cause trouble?" Dong Yuan's eyes flashed with a strange light. He turned to look at the workers of the Peak Chamber of Commerce. "Manager, these materials are all made up. This kid is clearly here to cause trouble." The worker who served Murongyu waved the list in his hand and sneered at Murongyu. "Damn you, who do you think you are? The manager wants to see the list." The burly man behind Dong Yuan could not help but curse when he saw that the worker did not pass the list to Dong Yuan. At the same time, he walked up and slapped the worker hard on the face. At the same time, he snatched the list and handed it to Dong Yuan. The worker who served Murongyu was stunned when he was slapped by the burly man. Then, he reacted and could not help but feel regret. He had taken the slap for nothing. If it wasn't for the fact that the burly man didn't use his full strength, he would have been slapped into a cloud of blood mist. Dong Yuan took the list and glanced at it. His expression changed drastically. Yuan Meteor Stone, Space Crystal, Dark Sky Stone, 3-star stone. Dong Yuan was more shocked the more he looked. "Supervisor, are you sure that this brat is here to cause trouble on purpose?" Holding his swollen face that resembled a steamed bun, he glared fiercely at Murongyu. He blamed everything that happened today on Murongyu. F*CKU. Dong Yuan, who was very surprised, couldn't help but snort coldly and slap the other side of the man's face after hearing his words. This time, the worker was completely stunned. The other workers were also completely stunned. They finally reacted. This kid was not here to cause trouble. The materials were real. They just did not know about it. How many times have I told you? Just because you don't know or have never heard of them doesn't mean they don't exist. You have to ask me before you make a decision. Are you deaf? Are you scared? Are you ignoring my words? After slapping the worker, Dong Yuan was still furious. Hence, he scolded the workers, not caring about what the nearby customers thought. "I'll deduct your bonuses for a year. I'll deduct your bonuses for 3 years and reduce your benefits by half." After scolding these people, Dong Yuan immediately punished them. This time, the rest of the workers looked at the worker who served Murongyu with resentment. "You son of a b***, are you blind? You got us into trouble." In response, Murongyu merely looked at Dong Yuan with an indifferent expression as he sneered. "Sir, this way please. Let's talk in detail somewhere else. By the way, I'm a manager of the Lingnan City branch of the Pinnacle Chamber of Commerce, Dong Yuan. How should I address you?" Murongyu was indifferent to Dong Yuan's enthusiasm. He had been framed as a troublemaker today. Even though Dong Yuan had already dealt with this matter, the anger in his heart had not dissipated. Are you not satisfied with my punishment? If that's the case, I'll fire them directly," Dong Yuan said when he saw Murongyu's indifference. The Chamber of Commerce's employees felt their hearts skip a beat as they looked at Murongyu with fearful gazes. As long as Murongyu said a word, they would lose this high-paying job. Chapter 446. This has nothing to do with them. I was the one who made a mistake. Supervisor, if you want to fire someone, then fire me alone. At this moment, the worker who had received Murongyu took a step forward and spoke to Dong Yuan with a resolute expression. Upon hearing this, a hint of surprise flashed in Murongyu's eyes as he looked at the worker. This fellow was a responsible person. Although Murongyu had not been in South Mountain State for long, he knew the benefits of working for a top chamber of commerce. 4 heavenly celestials like him, The benefits of working for these chambers of commerce were extremely high. Moreover, most of the people working for the chambers of commerce did not have much of a background. If they lost this job with their abilities, they wouldn't even be able to get cultivation resources in the future. Yu pondered for a moment before he said, "Forget it. They're only doing this for the sake of the Chamber of Commerce. I think we should just let it go." Although he wanted to kill the worker earlier, there was no need for him to be calculative with such a small fry. Moreover, the worker was not targeting Yu. After all, the materials that Yu needed were extremely rare. They had not even heard of them before. "Thank you." He thought Yu would not let him go. However, when he heard Yu's words, the worker who served Yu was stunned. Soon after, he came to his senses and thanked Yu with a face full of excitement. Yu merely waved his hand and turned to leave. However, how could Don Yuan let Yu leave just like that? If he let Yu leave, the reputation of the Peak Chamber of Commerce would be tarnished. Although Don Yuan was only an overarching heavenly supreme celestial and was not considered strong, he had good judgment. Nevertheless, he had a good eye. When Don Yuan saw Yu was not calculated with the worker, he nodded inwardly. He felt that Yu was a good person. If Yu were an ordinary person, even if he did not beat the worker to death, he would have demanded a large sum of compensation from the Peak Chamber of Commerce. Moreover, Don Yuan was not like these workers. When he saw Yu's list of materials, he felt that Yu was not simple. He was shocked to find that most of the materials Yu was looking for were materials that had almost disappeared. In other words, Don Yuan knew that the materials on Yu's material list existed, but they were almost impossible to find in the immortal world. "Sir, if you don't mind, why don't we go to the side and talk about these materials?" Don Yuan said with a smile before Yu left. Yu's heart skipped a beat. He stopped and looked at Don Yuan. "You have these materials?" Don Yuan smiled and said, "I can't guarantee all of them, but at least some of them. Would you be willing to sit down and talk?" "In that case, let's go and have a talk," Yu said faintly. With a faint smile, Don Yuan led Yu out of the materials area. "Those materials are really not enough? They really exist?" At this moment, the waiter who had received Yu was looking at their departing backs with a face full of shock. He felt somewhat depressed in his heart. "CK, I was beaten up for nothing. My eyes have been blinded." The moment he thought that those materials were real, the shop assistant regretted it so much that he wanted to slap himself twice. Pinnacle Chamber of Commerce, in a hall. "Mr. Don Yuan, does your Pinnacle Chamber of Commerce really have these materials?" Yu asked anxiously as soon as they sat down. He couldn't help but be anxious. These materials were related to the ascension of Shenzhen's disciples. Pinnacle Chamber of Commerce is one of the top 10 chambers of commerce in the immortal world. We have the most complete materials in the immortal world. Of course, we have most of the materials Mr. needs, Don Yuan said awkwardly. "Only a portion? Not all." Yu frowned at Don Yuan. Don Yuan said awkwardly, "We have most of the materials Mr. needs. Although there are a few, the Pinnacle Chamber of Commerce has a small amount in storage. However, the Pinnacle Chamber of Commerce doesn't have the Dark Space Stone, Yuan Meteor Stone, and Space Crystal. At least the Lingnan branch doesn't have them. Yuan Meteor Stone, Space Crystal, Dark Space Stone, and 3-star Stone were the most important materials to construct a teleportation array. The other materials weren't that important. Although they were rare, the Pinnacle Chamber of Commerce had them. However, the problem now was that they didn't have the most important materials. Even if they had the other materials, they wouldn't be of much use." Seeing Yu frown, Don Yuan continued, "Although the Lingnan branch doesn't have them, the Pinnacle Chamber of Commerce has them all over the immortal world. If Mr. isn't in a hurry, I can contact the headquarters and other branches to help you gather the materials. What do you think?" After pondering for a moment, Yu could only nod his head. If the Pinnacle Chamber of Commerce didn't have them, it would be difficult. "Apart from these materials, can the Pinnacle Chamber of Commerce gather the rest for me?" Yu asked. "Although some of the materials are rare, with the Pinnacle Chamber of Commerce's ability, We can gather them in a short time. 3 days. In 3 days, we will be able to gather all the materials. Dong Yuan gritted his teeth and said after pondering for a moment. Morong Yu nodded. Give me 10,000 jin of each. 10,000 jin of each. Dong Yuan staggered and almost fell off his chair. 10,000 jin. For ordinary materials, 10,000 jin wasn't a lot. It was considered very little. However, for some rare materials, not to mention 10,000 jin, even half a jin was definitely a sky-high price because those materials were too rare. However, Morong Yu needed to construct a teleportation array in the Shenzhen of the immortal world and the cultivation world. Although the materials added up to almost 1,000,000 jin, after refining, there shouldn't be much left. It should be enough to construct 2 teleportation arrays. What's wrong? Is it difficult? Morong Yu frowned. Of course not. However, there are some materials that the nearby branches don't have in stock. It will take some time to gather them. Dong Yuan said awkwardly. He had said that because he thought that Morong Yu didn't need many materials. Very good. I will come back to the Pinnacle Chamber of Commerce in 3 days. I hope to hear good news then. Morong Yu stood up and prepared to leave. Oh yes, this immortal meridian will be the deposit. Morong Yu took out an immortal meridian from the Hichu Luoshu world and threw it to Dong Yuan. There were a lot of materials, and some of them were very rare. Who knew how many immortal meridian would be used in the end? Therefore, Morong Yu gave Dong Yuan an immortal meridian as the deposit. With the reputation of the Pinnacle Chamber of Commerce, they wouldn't take the immortal meridian for themselves. Dong Yuan heaved a sigh of relief when he saw that Morong Yu had given him an immortal meridian. When he had seen that Morong Yu was about to leave, he had almost called out to Morong Yu to stop him. After all, if he had gathered the materials and found that Morong Yu had disappeared, he would have suffered some losses. Now, even if Morong Yu didn't come back in 3 days, 1 immortal meridian would be enough for Dong Yuan. After leaving the Pinnacle Chamber of Commerce, Morong Yu didn't leave immediately. Instead, he went to other chambers of commerce. This time, he went straight to the managers of the Chamber of Commerce and gave them missions. However, what made Morong Yu depressed was that these chambers of commerce didn't have Yuan meteor stones, dark space stones, and other important materials. This shouldn't be. Even if these materials are rare, they shouldn't be extinct, right? Morong Yu walked out of the Chamber of Commerce, feeling very depressed. Hichu had said before that in ancient times, these materials were just ordinary materials. Why couldn't he find a single one now? Moreover, what made Morong Yu the most curious was that the immortal world didn't even have a transfer array. Otherwise, Morong Yu could have just destroyed those transfer arrays. Hichu, are you sure there aren't any transfer arrays in the immortal world? Morong Yu found Hichu and asked directly. On the surface, there aren't any, but there should be transfer arrays in the immortal world. However, with your current strength and status, you won't be able to come into contact with them. You'd better go and find those materials obediently, Hichu said, as if he knew what Morong Yu was thinking. Morong Yu asked, what's the level of an expert that can create spatial crystals from space? If it's in the heaven realm, there will be spatial crystals if you casually break the void. However, in the immortal world, even if you break the void, there might not be any. This depends on the person's character. The space crystal was actually another form of existence of space. Just like ordinary crystals, they were formed by the void. We can only wait 3 days to see what the Pinnacle Merchant Guild has to say. If they don't even have one, then we'll try other merchant guilds. If they don't, Morong Yu frowned. If they couldn't find these materials, then they wouldn't be able to build a transfer array. Strange, the immortal world doesn't even have an immortal ascension stage. Hichu frowned. Immortal ascension stage? You're saying that the immortal ascension stage has these materials? Morong Yu asked hurriedly. There was an immortal ascension stage in the immortal world. If they had the materials, Morong Yu wouldn't mind destroying it. No, the immortal ascension stage I'm talking about is the immortal ascension stage in the immortal world. In ancient times, immortals who ascended from the immortal world would appear at a fixed place. It wasn't like now, where they would randomly appear in the millions of great continents of the immortal world. Because of this, immortals who ascended from the immortal world would often appear in forbidden or dangerous places. They wouldn't even have time to take a look at the immortal world before they mysteriously died. Fine, let's wait for news in Lingnan City. Murong Yu released Little Purple and a large black dog and began to walk around Lingnan City. At the same time, people from the Immortal Palace and the Heavenly Punisher Palace also appeared in Lingnan City. Chapter 447. After Murong Yu had destroyed the Black Civ sect, a subsidiary of the Immortal Palace, the Black Civ sect, the Immortal Palace had been enraged. They'd sent an even stronger subsidiary sect to hunt down Murong Yu. However, Murong Yu's whereabouts were mysterious. Who would have thought that after destroying the Black Civ sect in Jian Province, he would appear in the distant Lingnan Province in next moment? The distance between Lingnan Province and Jian Province was very far. No one knew that Murong Yu had come here after destroying the Black Civ sect. Even though the Immortal Palace knew that Murong Yu had the Hichu Luoshu, they only knew that Hichu Luoshu had the power to carry living people and machines. They didn't know that Hichu Luoshu could transport people. Therefore, after the Immortal Palace's subordinate sects couldn't find any trace of Murong Yu in Jian Province, they searched for him in the nearby provinces. However, Murong Yu wasn't there at all. How could they find him? After the information was sent back to the Immortal Palace, they became even more furious. They finally used the Immortal Palace's intelligence network. As one of the three giants of the immortal world, the Immortal Palace's strength was terrifying. It didn't take long for them to find out Murong Yu's identity. He was a disciple of the Heavenly Punisher Palace, and a punisher of the Huaxia cultivation world. Naturally, the Immortal Palace was furious. They already knew that Murong Yu had destroyed the Black Civ sect. It was very likely that the Heavenly Punisher Palace was involved. After all, the two sects fought openly and covertly. The Immortal Palace had also destroyed some of the Heavenly Punisher Palace's subordinate sections. Although they were shocked by Murong Yu's identity, the Immortal Palace didn't want to let Murong Yu go. After all, so what if Murong Yu was a disciple of the Heavenly Punisher Palace? The Immortal Palace wasn't afraid. Moreover, Murong Yu was only an ordinary palace master in the Heavenly Punisher Palace. If they killed him, the Heavenly Punisher Palace wouldn't do anything. Even though Murong Yu was a disciple that the Heavenly Punisher Palace focused on cultivating, for the sake of Hichu Luoshu, Murong Yu had to be killed. Therefore, the people from the Immortal Palace came to Lingnan City. To be exact, it was an affiliated sect of the Immortal Palace. On the other side, Murong Yu won 3 royal armaments from the Wind and Fire Cultivation World's MO on Mount Wuji of the Heavenly Retribution Palace. The great temptation of a royal armament finally caused some of the Heavenly Punisher Palace's disciples to be tempted. On the first day of Murong Yu's arrival in Lingnan City, people from the Immortal Palace and the Heavenly Punishing Palace arrived at the same time. Their goal was Murong Yu. At this time, Murong Yu had just left the Chamber of Commerce and was admiring the scenery of South Mountain City with Little Purple and the big black dog. Not long after, Murong Yu frowned slightly. He could vaguely feel a few hidden auras staring at him from behind. We're being followed. Murong Yu's lips curled into a sneer. This was not the first time he had been followed. As long as the other party was not too strong, he would. He would not take it seriously at all. As long as he wanted to, he could use Hichu Luoshu to quickly get rid of their tracking. Murong Yu thought these people were just some small fries and did not care at all. However, not long after, Murong Yu's expression became serious, because he realized that there seemed to be more people following him than before, and they seemed to be very strong. At least, they were much stronger than him when he was in the exalted immortal realm. Murong Yu furrowed his brows and stealthily brought Little Purple and the big black dog to a forest. South Mountain City was thousands of miles wide, and not all of it was buildings. There were also many rivers, lakes, and mountain ranges. However, these mountain ranges were different from those in the wild. because these mountain ranges did not have any danger, and there were no treasures or mystic realms in them. After all, they were all in South Mountain City. Even if there were any mystic realms, the dangers would have been destroyed by the immortals of South Mountain City. Big brother, why did you bring us here? Little Purple raised her head and looked at Murongyu with eyes full of confusion. She did not even understand why they were in the bustling city just now. You guys go back first. Murongyu looked at Little Purple and smiled faintly. Then, with a wave of his hand, he sent them back to the Hichu Luoshu world. You've been following me for so long. Come out, all of you. Murongyu stood where he was and said indifferently, as expected, you're not ordinary. You actually found us. However, you're too stupid. You found out that we were following you, but you didn't run away immediately. Do you think you can escape from us with your high immortal stage cultivation? A young man looked at Murongyu and sneered. He was a profound immortal. As soon as these people appeared, they deliberately spread out and vaguely surrounded Murongyu. However, they were not surprised at Little Purple and the big black dog's sudden disappearance. They must have known about Murongyu. Seeing these people, Murongyu did not speak and only frowned slightly. This was because he also found that other than these people, there was another group of people hiding in the dark, spying on them. If it's not their accomplices, then it's another group of people, and they're even stronger than these people. Murongyu's expression suddenly became serious. Obviously, these people did not find the person hiding in the dark. It was obvious that the person hiding in the dark was the Oriole. Murongyu sneered in his heart. No matter who you are, if you want to take my life, you should be prepared to be killed by me. Who are you? Why are you following me? Murongyu looked at the first group of people and said coldly, Why are you asking the obvious? Boy, hand over your treasures and we'll spare your life. The profound immortal who spoke before stepped forward and looked at Murongyu with disdain. Murongyu narrowed his eyes slightly. You're from the Immortal Palace? Since you know who we are, then why don't you obediently hand over your treasures? The profound immortal sneered. Murongyu sneered. Who do you think you are? The Immortal Palace? Even if you're a disciple of the Immortal Palace, don't think you can get a single hair from me, let alone the disciples of the Immortal Palace. If you know what's good for you, then get out of here, or I don't mind destroying you, just like the Black Civ sect. Boy, you're not strong, but you're arrogant. How can we be compared to trash like the Black Civ sect? You're so slow. You're courting death. The profound immortal said impatiently and reached out his hand to grab Murongyu. You're courting death. Murongyu coldly snorted. His figure didn't dodge as he charged forward. In the process, he threw out a punch. Elephant drawing fist. Don't kill him, just capture him. At this moment, a profound immortal who seemed to be the leader said. The young profound immortal sneered. Just a mere exalted immortal. I'll take him down. Is that so? Murongyu sneered as his hand shot out at an even faster speed. Boom! Just when the two fists collided, the Shin immortal thought that he could break Murongyu's arm with a single punch. However, he felt a sharp pain in his hands. What? Impossible. The young profound immortal felt strange and couldn't help but look at his arm. After taking a look, his face immediately revealed an extremely horrified expression, because he saw that his arm had disappeared for no reason. Yes, it had disappeared. Not good. There's something wrong with this boy. The young profound immortal roared and was about to retreat. But at this moment, Murongyu's fist had already landed on his body. Puff! A burst of fire that was almost invisible to the naked eye enveloped the young profound immortal, and then he disappeared in front of everyone's eyes. He disappeared? How is that possible? Seeing this scene, whether it was the young Xian immortal or those who were hiding in the back, they were all shocked. There's no aura. He seems to have been killed. The young profound immortal's companions were shocked because they realized that the young profound immortal's aura was gone. There was only one possibility. The young Xian immortal was already dead. But they weren't sure because Murongyu was only an exalted immortal. How could he kill a profound immortal who was 2 realms lower than him? And the strangest thing was that they clearly saw the young, profound, immortal disappear into thin air. Even if Murong Yu could kill the young, profound immortal in one hit, he couldn't have left nothing behind. Could it be that he put the young, profound immortal into his space magic treasure? This thought appeared in everyone's mind. Boy, let our man out. An immortal looked at Murong Yu with a gloomy face. Idiot. Murong Yu looked at him like he was an idiot. Although I have a magic treasure that can carry living people, would I be stupid enough to put a profound immortal in it? Don't forget, my man is still in there. He's already been killed by me, and there's nothing left of him. Arrogant. Everyone didn't believe him. You don't believe me? You can come out and try. Do you have the guts to come out and try? Murong Yu pointed at another profound immortal with a look of disdain. It couldn't be helped. The weakest among them was a profound immortal. If Murong Yu wanted to intimidate them, he could only choose a profound immortal. Why wouldn't I dare? The profound immortal who was called out jumped out and looked at Murong Yu with a murderous look. He threw a punch at him. Heh, don't blame me if you die. Murong Yu sneered and threw a 1,000-army elephant pulling fist. At this moment, everyone stared at Murong Yu without blinking. Open your dog eyes and see clearly how I'm going to kill this idiot. Murong Yu coldly shouted. His invincible divine fist directly smashed into the profound immortal's hand. Just like the previous Xian immortal, when their hands touched, the Xian immortal's hand disappeared into thin air. At the same time, Murong Yu abruptly took a step forward and ruthlessly punched his opponent's body with lightning speed. The weak flame flashed and disappeared. The young Xian immortal screamed and disappeared again. Was he really killed with a single punch? Everyone was extremely shocked when they saw this scene. Chapter 448. Murong Yu was only an exalted immortal with the strength of a golden immortal. It was impossible for him to have the strength of a mystic immortal. Could it be that he had broken through? In fact, Murong Yu had not broken through. He was still an exalted immortal. It was just that he had comprehended something recently. It was not Murong Yu's true strength that killed a mystic immortal, but the yin-yang flame. The yin-yang flame was said to be able to burn the world. For a long time, Murong Yu had to use the yin-yang cauldron to kill his enemies. This was because the yin-yang flame was stored in the cauldron. However, recently, Murong Yu could cover his body with the yin-yang flame without using the cauldron. In other words, Murong Yu could kill his enemies with the yin-yang flame without using the cauldron. When Murong Yu killed the two mystic immortals, the weak flame was the yin-yang flame that burned the two unlucky mystic immortals to death. However, the crowd didn't know. Although they saw a weak flash of fire, they didn't know. They only thought that it was the light from Murong Yu's battle skill. Therefore, they all thought that Murong Yu had killed a mystic immortal with a single punch. Shocking, absolutely shocking. An exalted immortal killed a mystic immortal with a single punch? This was too shocking. For a moment, the people from the Immortal Palace and those who were hiding were all shocked. Damn it, why is his strength so terrifying? The people hiding in the distance roared in their hearts. However, even so, they did not leave. After all, Murong Yu had a royal weapon. Even if Murong Yu was several times stronger, they would still kill Murong Yu and take the royal weapon. Although the people from the Immortal Palace were shocked, they were only shocked for a moment. They were not afraid of Murong Yu. This was because a mystic immortal was the weakest in their group. Murong Yu could kill a mystic immortal in an instant. Perhaps he could kill an overarching heavenly supreme immortal. Could he kill one? Or even a 9 heavens mystic immortal? Take him down. The leader of the immortals shouted as he looked at Murong Yu. Boom, boom, boom. The moment the leading immortal spoke, everyone from the Immortal Palace made their move. One by one, they stretched out their big hands to grab Murong Yu. Murong Yu's face revealed a look of disdain. These guys, it seems like I haven't intimidated them enough. Since that's the case, let's do something even bigger. While sneering, Murong Yu made a grabbing motion in the air. Immediately, an immortal sword emitting a powerful aura appeared in his hand. As soon as the divine weapon appeared, a terrifying aura erupted, shocking everyone. This is a high-level magic weapon. When they saw the magic weapon in Murong Yu's hand, the people of the Immortal Palace were overjoyed. All of them felt that the divine weapon in Murong Yu's hand was a king weapon because they felt that with Murong Yu's status, it was impossible for him to have a divine weapon. All of you go to hell. With the king weapon in his hand, Murong Yu felt unprecedentedly powerful. A terrifying aura erupted, followed by a blinding light. A sword ray that was filled with a terrifying aura shot out and tore the void apart. Die! Murong Yu shouted as he viciously slashed the sword at the people of the Immortal Palace. At that moment, the aura of a royal armament burst forth. It tore apart heaven and earth, and a terrifying crack appeared in the air. With a horrifying aura that could destroy the world, the royal armament fiercely slashed down. The people of the Immortal Palace were shocked. They could only feel a terrifying and dangerous aura rushing toward them. Run! At this moment, this was the only thought that appeared in their minds. However, how could these Xian celestials, overarching heavenly supreme celestials, and great overarching golden celestials escape the attack of the king weapon? Poof! The terrifying sword light slashed down directly. Before the people of the Immortal Palace could react, they had already been slashed into clouds of blood mist by this terrifying sword light and exploded in the void. One slash. With just one slash, all the disciples of the Immortal Palace, regardless of whether they were Xian celestials, overarching heavenly supreme celestials, great overarching golden celestials, or even 9 heavens Xian celestials were killed. Only the 9 heavens Xian celestial, who was the leader, reacted immediately. He immediately soared into the sky and dodged the attack of the king weapon. Even so, he was still severely injured by the power of the king weapon. King weapon. At this moment, he was finally certain that the divine weapon in Murong Yu's hand was a king weapon. The 9 heavens Xian celestial looked at Murong Yu in disbelief. Murong Yu looked up at the 9 heavens Xian celestial in the void. He felt slightly depressed and regretful. The slash of the sword had consumed more than half of his strength. Even if he could still slash with the sword, the 9 heavens Xian celestial was too far away from him. If he reacted in time, he would be able to escape. Fly! Murong Yu felt helpless. If he could fly, none of the people of the Immortal Palace would be able to escape. Unfortunately, he had not reached the golden immortal realm. Even if he could fly with the sword kinesis flight, the speed of a turtle. Forget it. Forget it. After this, I'll ask Ichu if he has any flying techniques. After Murong Yu made up his mind, he calmly stood where he was. Murong Yu has a king weapon. This matter needs to be reported. If there is no immortal king, we are no match for him. The 9 heavens Xian celestial did not stay there. Instead, he flew away. The king weapon is indeed with this kid. With his strength, he can only use it once. It's impossible to use it twice. This time, we will definitely get the king weapon. Seeing the power of the king weapon, the people hiding in the dark were shocked, but more than that, they were happy. This was because they believed that Murong Yu's king weapon would soon be theirs. Come on out. Murong Yu stood in place with a calm expression on his face. However, his face was a little pale, as if he could not continue. He actually discovered us? The people hiding in the dark were shocked. They could not imagine how Murong Yu could discover their existence. One had to know that with their concealment skills, even the 9 heavens Xian celestial experts of the Immortal Palace would not be able to discover them. However, since they had already been discovered, they no longer hid. Even if Murong Yu did not discover them, they would not continue to hide. Good kid, you were actually able to discover us. Not bad. However, you will definitely die today. A group of people walked out from the dark. Many people have said this to me before, but the one who died was the one who said it. You are no exception. Murong Yu stood where he was and coldly looked at these people. The moment these people came out, they looked greedily at the king weapon in Murong Yu's hand. They did not hide their greed and covetousness. Kid, hand over all your king weapons, and we will let you live. How about it? An expert looked greedily at Murong Yu. Morong Yu frowned. You are the disciples of the Heavenly Punisher Palace? Morong Yu had king weapons in his hand, and more than one. This was something that only the people of the Heavenly Punisher Palace knew about. Perhaps even the people of the Immortal Palace did not know about it. Thus, Morong Yu was able to guess their identities the moment they said those words. You're indeed smart. However, people who are too smart often die young. An immortal sneered. Morong Yu was disdainful. Just with you? You must have seen the power of the king weapon, right? I can kill all of you with one sword. Ha! Hearing this, the disciples of the Heavenly Punisher Palace all laughed. With your strength as an exalted immortal, you can only use the king weapon once. Can you use a second time? If you can use the king weapon infinitely, we will turn around and leave. However, you can't. Morong Yu revealed a smile with a trace of disdain. Do you really think that I can't continue using the king weapon? As he spoke, Morong Yu's body staggered a few times, as if he could collapse at any time. In the eyes of the other party, this was the appearance of someone who had exhausted all of his strength. Why are you talking so much nonsense with him? Just kill him. A disciple of the Heavenly Punisher Palace impatiently walked out and punched at Morong Yu. Sigh, a group of reckless people. Originally, I didn't want to kill you because we are all disciples of the Heavenly Punisher Palace. However, since you insist on dying, I will fulfill your wish. As he spoke, Morong Yu fiercely pointed at the king weapon that was inserted into the ground. Rumble. The king weapon exploded with a terrifying light, and the aura of an immortal king soared into the sky. What? Impossible. How can he still use the king weapon? A disciple of the Heavenly Punisher Palace shouted. Die! Morong Yu shouted and slashed out with the king weapon. Puff! Just like the people of the Immortal Palace, these people were much stronger than the people of the Immortal Palace. However, in front of an expert who had not reached the Immortal King realm, they could not withstand a single blow from the king weapon. With a slash of the sword, the void was torn apart, and clouds of blood mist-bloomed in the void. After a long time, the powerful aura gradually dissipated. In this area, there was no other person besides Morong Yu. Even Morong Yu disappeared into thin air after killing the people of the Heavenly Punisher Palace. Plop! Morong Yu had just entered the Hichu Luo Shu when he fell to the ground. Using the king weapon twice in a row had exhausted all of his strength. Even with the Tree of Life replenishing him, he could not replenish his strength in time. The moment Morong Yu disappeared, several figures also landed in this mountain range. There is the aura of an immortal king. No, this is the aura of a king weapon. A person with a king weapon is fighting here. So many people have died? King weapon. It is actually a king weapon. The person who came looked around excitedly, as if he wanted to find some traces. Not long after, several more figures landed here. It seemed that Morong Yu's use of the king weapon had alarmed some experts in Lingnan City. Fortunately, Morong Yu had returned to the Hichu Luoshu world. Otherwise, the consequences would have been unimaginable. Chapter 449. Morong Yu fought with the disciples of the Immortal Palace and the Heavenly Punisher Palace in Lingnan City, and relied on the power of the royal armament to kill all the enemies. This matter was not a secret, and within a day, it had already spread in Lingnan City. After all, Lingnan City was one of the major cities in the immortal world, and there were countless experts and countless people who could reach the heavens. It was basically impossible for Morong Yu to hide from their eyes and ears. Of course, these people did not reveal Morong Yu's true identity. After all, once his identity as a disciple of the Heavenly Punisher Palace was revealed, many people would have scruples. Therefore, even if there were people who knew Morong Yu's true identity, they did not say it. Even if they killed Morong Yu in the end and snatched Morong Yu's royal armament, and the people of the Heavenly Punisher Palace came to settle the score, they could deny it. If they said that they did not know Morong Yu's identity, then the people of the Heavenly Punisher Palace would have no excuse to settle the score. Therefore, within a day, many immortals and many forces in Lingnan City were ready to make a move. One by one, They wanted to snatch Murong Yu's royal armament. Royal armament. Even immortal kings were tempted by a divine weapon. Even third-rate forces could not help but be tempted. However, for a few days, Murong Yu seemed to have disappeared into thin air, and there was no trace of him at all. Then where was Murong Yu? Murong Yu was in the Hichu Luoshu world. At this time, the power that was exhausted from using the royal armament had long been restored. However, he was still in the Hichu Luoshu world and had not left. It had been a long time since he ascended to the immortal world, but Murong Yu's strength was still in the exalted immortal realm. His strength was too weak, which made him very depressed. What made him most helpless was that he could not fly in a battle with experts of the golden immortal realm or above, which made him very embarrassed. For example, the nine-heaven Xian immortal from the immortal palace was able to escape Murong Yu's attack because he could fly. Murong Yu's speed was fast, but he could only run on the ground. It was useless against the experts in the void. Even if he used a royal armament, he would still be able to kill his enemies from a distance. However, this distance was limited. Once they flew too high or too far away, Murong Yu would not be able to do anything. Therefore, Murong Yu had to find a cultivation method that could allow him to fly before he reached the golden immortal realm. Even if the speed was a little slower, it didn't matter. The main thing was that it could fly. Generally speaking, people don't need to cultivate special flying techniques because there is no need to. Even if there are some cultivation methods that allow flight, they are too trashy and useless, Hichu said after pondering for a long time. In the immortal world, due to the rules of the immortal world, only perfected golden immortals could fly. Flying below the perfected golden immortal realm was against the rules of the immortal world. This was not allowed by the rules of the immortal world. Even if there was a cultivation method, it was only trash. It was useless in battle or even in traveling. Is there really no way to fly? Murong Yu frowned slightly. You can fly on a sword. Some magic treasures also have the ability to fly, Hichu said. Flying on a sword. This was the flying method of the lower realm when the cultivation world was not strong. No one in the immortal world did this, because the speed was too slow. Flying on a sword not only depended on the strength of the cultivator, but also had a direct relationship with the strength of the immortal sword. Forget it. Murong Yu shook his head. Even Hichu did not have one, which made him feel surprised. Let's improve our strength first. Although he had killed some 9 Heaven Xian immortals with the help of the Yin-Yang fire and the royal weapon, Murong Yu knew that he could only show off for a while. After 1 or 2 times, he was absent-minded. If it were not for Hichu Luoshu, his situation would be very dangerous. Moreover, Murong Yu also knew that the news of him having a royal weapon had spread. In this way, many people and many forces would pay attention to him. Magic treasures and divine weapons may be powerful, but the most powerful thing is still one's own strength. Murong Yu sat down cross-legged and burned his immortal meridians. He began to accelerate time. This time, he must break through to the golden immortal realm before coming out of seclusion. However, how could it be so easy to break through the chaotic celestial record? 1 year, 10 years, 100 years, 200 years. When Murong Yu cultivated for 200 years, boom. After a loud explosion, an extremely terrifying aura burst out from Murong Yu's body and soared into the sky. It was very terrifying. Rumble. When Murong Yu's body erupted with a terrifying aura that could destroy the world, the void above his head was torn apart. Then, the shadow of a winged dragon appeared in the void and roared at the sky. One after another, the shadows of winged dragons appeared above Murong Yu's head. 1,000, 2,000, 5,000, 7,000, 9,000. In the end, there were 10,000 winged dragons hovering above Murong Yu's head. 10,000 dragon power. The dragon power that had disappeared for a long time reappeared above Murong Yu's head. If an outsider were to see the densely packed rain dragon silhouettes hovering above Murong Yu's head, they'd definitely be shocked. How could this kid have so much dragon power? Unlike the cultivation world's maximum of 99, the immortal world's dragon power had reached 10,000. 10,000 was the limit. In the immortal world, the winged dragon was the lowest level of dragon power. Sky immortals, exalted immortals, golden immortals, and Shin immortals all had the winged dragon power. Ordinary sky immortals only had 1,000 dragon power at most. After becoming an exalted immortal, the winged dragon's dragon power would be between 1,000 and 3,000. As for the golden immortal stage, which was Murong Yu's current cultivation base, the winged dragon's dragon power would only be between 3,000 and 6,000. The more talented a person was, the more dragon power they would have. Those who could reach 6,000 dragon power at the golden immortal stage were definitely geniuses among geniuses. However, Murong Yu's current situation was a little strange. Not only had his dragon power exceeded the limit of 6,000, but it had also reached the limit of 10,000 dragon power that even mystic immortals could not reach. It was extremely powerful. In other words, Murong Yu's current strength had surpassed that of a mystic immortal. He was invincible among those below the overarching heavenly supreme celestial. If he were to fight against the mystic immortals from the celestial palace, he would not even need the yin-yang flame to kill them. This was his current strength. 10,000 dragon power. If I'm not mistaken, I should be invincible among those below the overarching heavenly supreme celestial. Murong Yu slowly stood up and sighed in relief. At the same time, the winged dragon's dragon power that was hovering above his head dissipated into the void. In the celestial realm, the dragon power would not be displayed in battles, unless you were so powerful that you were not afraid of being seen through by your opponent. Otherwise, you would be courting death. During a battle, who would reveal their strength to their enemy? Of course, in the cultivation world, the dragon power would be displayed when they used their strength. This was because they were still unable to control the dragon power. The second level of the chaotic celestial record. Murong Yu was happy and depressed after he had broken through. There were 9 levels in the chaotic celestial record. He had only broken through to the second level of the second level. When would he reach the peak? However, Murong Yu knew that he could not rush the path of cultivation. If he cultivated slowly, he would reach the peak one day. The strength of a late-stage golden immortal and a profound immortal. My lifespan. What long lifespan? Murong Yu felt his own lifespan and was shocked by what he saw. 2 billion years. He had a lifespan of 2 billion years. It was impossible for Murong Yu not to be shocked. After all, a great overarching golden immortal only had a lifespan of 10 billion years. A golden immortal only had a lifespan of 50 million years. Murong Yu's lifespan was 40 times longer than a golden immortal of the same stage. It was even longer than the lifespan of an overarching heavenly supreme celestial. After recovering from his shock, Murong Yu was even more confident that he would be able to cultivate the chaotic celestial record to the peak. Apart from that, Murong Yu also saw that the tree of life in his dantian had grown to a height of 10,000 miles. At the same time, his dantian was also enlarged. The chaotic energy that the tree of life devours and transforms is more than 10,000 times stronger than before. My body has also become a grade 6 celestial artifact. Murong Yu could not help but laugh when he realized how powerful he was. Now, Murong Yu could even fight against an overarching heavenly supreme celestial. With the help of his other treasures, Murong Yu might even be able to kill an overarching heavenly supreme celestial who was not very strong. At this moment, Murong Yu was so excited that he almost wanted to leave Hichu Luoshu and fight with the people from the Celestial Palace. Just as Murong Yu was about to leave Hichu Luoshu, he sensed something. Then, an expression of joy appeared on his face. The Army Seal formula has also broken through. The Army Seal formula and the Battle Seal formula did not have different grades. However, at this moment, Murong Yu could clearly feel that the Army Seal formula was about to break through. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Murong Yu's body turned into a black shadow as he unleashed the Army Seal formula to its limit. He began to run rapidly in the Hichu Luoshu world. I can feel it. I'm about to break through. I'm only one step away from breaking through. As he ran, Morong-Yu's speed increased. Soon, Morong-Yu's figure could no longer be seen. Rumble. All of a sudden, a violent and powerful aura erupted from Morong-Yu's body. At the same time, Morong-Yu, who was originally running on the ground, suddenly soared into the air. Then he started flying in the air. If someone were to see this scene, they would be shocked. How could a golden celestial fly in the air? HM? After making a breakthrough in the soldier symbol formula, I can now fly? Morong-Yu was astonished after flying for a while. No, this doesn't seem right. Morong-Yu furrowed his brows. When he turned around to look, he saw a large black mass suddenly appear behind him. Wings? A birdman? When Morong-Yu saw the pair of black wings on his back, he couldn't help but feel dizzy for a moment. He almost fell from the sky. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.